Chapter 359. Hearing Tang Ilian's words, Ji Dong sneered. "Excuse me, Teacher Tang Ilian, have you asked the students of my class about the assessment results? My students just told me that you didn't even give them a chance to explain. How do you know that the students of my class didn't have the qualifications to receive the commendation? Without a doubt, the students of my class are the most outstanding students of this year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to enter my class. Even if I, as a teacher, am not good enough, do you think they don't have the ability?" Relying on the presence of Zhu Rong, although Tang Ilian was very afraid of Ji Dong, her resentment stimulated her and she angrily said, "Your class started to move together with our class 3, but you couldn't even grab a low-level magical beast. You were forced to move alone. That's right, the students of your class were the most outstanding when you first entered the school. But after a month of teaching, whether they are still the best or not depends on the teacher's teaching ability." Ji Dong coldly said, "So, Teacher Tang thinks that my teaching ability is not good enough? Let's do it this way. Facts speak louder than words. We're all magicians, so it's best to speak with our strength. Professor Tang's Class 3 and Professor Xuanyuan's Class 2 are also outstanding students in this year's competition. Why don't we make a bet?" "What do you want to bet?" Xuanyuan Xian slurred. He was rather afraid of Ji Dong. The fear brought about by the suppression of elemental energy could only be understood by those who had truly experienced it. Although Ji Dong's lightning-like charge did not kill him, the Class 7 magical beast was unable to resist at all with a single stomp. He did not even have the chance to strike back before his life hung in Ji Dong's hands. This fear had already been deeply imprinted in his mind. He would never be able to erase it. Ji Dong said, "The students of my Class 1 will fight against the students of Class 2 and Class 3 at the same time. If we win, then I want all the commendation rewards. If we lose, then I'll let you do whatever you want to me. What do you think?" "Ji Dong, don't stir up trouble," Zhu Rong shouted. Of course, he wanted to protect his talented students. Although Xuanyuan Xian and Tang Ilian were a little domineering, they were quite good at teaching. Otherwise, they wouldn't have both become department heads. Zhu Rong wouldn't have asked them to stay before Ji Dong arrived. These two came to Zhu Rong, one to complain, the other to resign. Xuanyuan Xian had been humiliated by Ji Dong like this, so he didn't have the face to stay in the school anymore. Ji Dong said, "Please believe me, Shifu, I am confident." Of course, he knew what Zhu Rong was worried about. Tang Ilian sneered, "Of course you have confidence. Princess Xian is a 6 crowns demon master. You can deal with 2 crowns in our class. How can you not have confidence?" Tang Ilian nodded and said, "Of course you have confidence. Princess Xian is a 6-crown magician. The other 3 are all 2-crown magicians. Are you satisfied with this?" Ji Dong nodded and said, "Very well, our Class 1 will only send out half of the students, 5 of them will be male students. Among them, only 2 of them are 3 crowns, the other 3 are 2 crowns. Are you satisfied with this result?" Ji Dong's words caused Xuanyuan Xian's face to flush red. He said, "Ji Dong, don't be too arrogant. Fine, I'll bet with you. If you win, we'll be at your disposal. What do you think?" Ji Dong said in a clear voice, "A gentleman keeps his word." Zhu Rong frowned and looked at Ji Dong. He didn't stop him, because he saw the absolute confidence in Ji Dong's eyes. It wasn't the first time that Zhu Rong had seen this kind of confidence. Before, every time he saw this kind of confidence in Ji Dong's eyes, this talented student of his had brought him great surprises, even miracles. Zhu Rong also wanted to know why Ji Dong was so confident. He wanted to know why Ji Dong could defeat 20 students of the same grade with only 5 students. Even though Ji Dong was good at teaching, how much could he improve his students within a month? Xuanyuan Xian and Tang Ilian glanced at each other, then Tang Ilian said, "Good, we'll go gather the students now. See you on the sports field." While talking, she and Xuanyuan Xian said goodbye to Zhu Rong and left angrily. This was their best chance to win back their losses. As long as they could humiliate Ji Dong in the student fight, they would be able to vent their anger. No matter how powerful a teacher was, it was useless if he didn't know how to teach students. They were still very confident in their teaching abilities. Not to mention their personalities, as teachers, they were extremely responsible for their students. They would teach their students everything they knew, which made them highly respected in their classes. Seeing Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian leave, Zhu Rong looked at Ji Dong with a faint smile and said, "You little bastard, let's see how you're going to deal with this." Seeing the care in Zhu Rong's eyes, Ji Dong suddenly kneeled down on the ground and kowtowed to Zhu Rong 3 times. Zhu Rong was stunned and hurriedly said, "What are you doing?" After kowtowing, Ji Dong stood up and said, "Teacher, I'm sorry for making you worry these days. Don't worry, I won't give up on myself anymore. You're right, even if it's to take revenge for the flaming bar and fulfill her last wish, I will pull myself together. In the competition later, I won't let you lose face." Looking at Ji Dong's eyes that had recovered, Zhu Rong's eyes brightened. He took a step forward and walked out from behind the table. He came in front of Ji Dong, looked at his disciple who was almost as tall as him, and heavily patted his shoulder. Zhu Rong's eyes were clearly a little red. Half an hour later, the challenge between the first-grade students had already caused a stir in the entire Blazing Flame Academy. In order to take revenge, under the instruction of Tang Ilian's Xianyuan Xian, the news that the second and third classes were going to compete was spread to every class in the academy. At this time, there were already hundreds of students and teachers from different grades gathered on the field. Most of them were curious. Although the first grade was the strongest in each grade, no one would believe that the 5 of them could defeat the 20 people from the second and third classes, who were second only to the first grade. Even the 5th grade students who had been cultivating for 5 years couldn't do it. These first grade students had only been cultivating for a little more than a month, and even with the time spent in the trial, it was a total of less than 2 months. The 5 students of the first grade were now standing beside Ji Dong. Iya of the first wood element, Ziqinxing of the third fire element, Su Li of the 5th earth element, Ho Xian of the 7th metal element, and Jing Yu of the 9th water element, were all standing in front of Ji Dong. The other 5 girls stood to the side. The 5 male students, led by Ziqinxing, didn't seem nervous at all. Occasionally, they glanced at the second and third class students who had already gathered not far away, their eyes filled with disdain. Even a lion needs to use its full strength when hunting a rabbit. "Don't be careless," Ji Dong said indifferently. However, he discovered that it was not easy to make these brats nervous. In the trial of MT Almonds, they had killed several dozen Class 5 and 6 magical beasts, but the price of their cores had already far exceeded the rewards the Academy had given them. After facing such powerful opponents as Class 6 magical beasts, it was no wonder that they were unable to raise their spirits when facing these students who were all at the level of 2 champions. To Ji Dong's surprise, Ziqinxing's mana had already risen to level 34, Jing Yu's was level 32, and Su Li, who had originally been level 20, had been stimulated by the trial after returning to the academy. He had also broken through to 3 champions. Ho Xian had broken through to level 28, and Iya, who had always kept a low profile, had also reached level 29. With the addition of a 3-champion Magus, their overall strength had undoubtedly risen to another level. "Alright, go. You can only win this battle, you can't lose. If you want me to use my mental strength to guide you to defeat your opponents, then just you wait." Seeing the sliver of coldness at the corner of Ji Dong's mouth, the 5 male students couldn't help but shiver. Their previously playful expressions immediately disappeared, and they all walked into the field with killing intent. It was as if the students of the second and third classes had killed their husbands and stolen their wives. What a joke! Who would dare to bear the wrath of teacher Ji Dong? Wouldn't that be looking for trouble? The spectating students and teachers all felt that it was strange. In their opinion, the students of the second and third classes clearly had the absolute advantage, but the 5 students of the first class didn't seem to have the slightest awareness of weakness when they walked out. Seeing the 5 students of Jidong's side walk out, and the 20 students on the other side also walked out under Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian's orders, how could they, the students, feel good when their class teacher had suffered a setback? In particular, the students of these 2 classes were the most advantageous competitors when they had entered the same class as Chen Xishuan. They were like fire and water with the students of the first class. This was also why the students of the other classes had collectively suppressed the first class. There was originally an element of jealousy in it. Tang Ilian looked at Hyoheim's side and said, "Who will be the judge?" Jidong coldly said, "Up to you. I'll be the judge of this unprecedented exchange of pointers." An old and vigorous voice sounded, and Zhu Rong walked out from the passage the students had parted. Seeing Dean Zhu Rong appear, the eyes of the 25 students who were about to fight couldn't help but brighten. Who didn't know of Dean Fu Rong's prestige? The reason they chose Blazing Academy could be said to be at least more than half, because Zhu Rong was the founder of Blazing Academy. With Dean Zhu Rong as the judge for this exchange of pointers, it could be said to be the best stage for them to display themselves. How could they not be excited? With Zhu Rong stepping out, everyone naturally wouldn't have any objections. Zhu Rong calmly smiled, saying, "Are you all ready?" "Ready." The 25 students shouted in unison. Zhu Rong nodded, saying, "This is only an exchange of pointers, don't overdo it. Let's begin." Hearing Zhu Rong's words, the students from both sides immediately showed different reactions. The 20 students from Class 2 and Class 3 spread out almost at the same time, releasing their yin and yang crowns at the same time. 4 students with the earth element were sitting in the middle, while 4 students with the fire element and 4 students with the metal element were standing on the left and right sides respectively. A total of 12 students had formed the first row, and behind them were 4 students with the water element and 4 students with the wood element. Seeing this formation, even Zhu Rong couldn't help secretly nodding. In terms of teaching students, Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian really had their own way. The formation formed by these 20 people was undoubtedly extremely exquisite. The earth attribute was at the front and center, mainly for defense. The metal and fire attributes, which had the strongest attack power, concentrated their attacks on the left and right flank. The water and wood attributes respectively amplified the fire and metal attribute. Water gave birth to wood and wood gave birth to fire. At the same time, these 2 attributes also had healing abilities. However, when Zhu Rong's eyes fell on the 5 male students of Class 1, his eyes couldn't help but shine brightly. Of course, the reaction speed and formation of 5 people were much faster than that of 20 people. When the students of Class 2 and Class 3 lined up, the 5 male students of Class 1 only raised their left hand. When they walked out, they had already maintained their usual formation. This was a habit that they had developed during the training in the Almonds Mountain, where they could encounter danger at any time. Therefore, Jidong's requirement for them was that even when they were eating, sleeping, or going to the toilet, the 5 of them had to maintain the formation together. Therefore, when the opponents lined up, the 5 of them only needed to raise their left hands and press on the shoulder of the person in front of them, and that would be enough for them to complete the 5-element mutual generation and circulation formation that they had been practicing for over a month. They didn't release the yin-yang crown at the first instant, but rather, they poured out their mana at the first instant. The 5-colored light had almost completed the cycle in an instant, and in the next moment, the yin-yang crown appeared above their heads. At this moment, the students of Class 2 and Class 3 had just lined up and started to release the yin-yang crown. The speed at which one condensed mana could often become the key to defeating the enemy. This was something that every magician knew, but how many people could actually do it? Zi Qinxing shouted, "The rotation of the 5 elements would restrains earth." The 5 of them rotated rapidly, pouring out their mana to the fullest, and a strange scene appeared. The originally 5-colored light instantly condensed at the position of Ya, a student of the first wood element, and a strong green light soared into the sky. Ya himself was only a level 29 student, but at this moment, the strong mana fluctuations that erupted from his body were not something that a level 29 magician could release. Without any fancy moves, the moment the yin-yang crown of the opposing magicians appeared, Ya had already punched out with his right fist. His target was the 4 students of the earth element in the center of the opponent's formation. A green pillar of light that was as thick as a water bucket shot out like a bolt of lightning. Seeing this pillar of light explode out, the expressions of all the teachers on the scene changed. Perhaps the students didn't understand how much mana was contained in this pillar of light, but as teachers, how could they not know? Chapter 360. In the face of the thick green light that was suddenly emitted by Ya, the wood element student of Class 1, the 4 earth element students of Class 2 and Class 3 turned pale with fright. Their actual combat abilities had improved to a certain extent under the guidance of Xianyuan Xin and Tang Ilian. However, in the face of such a suffocating and enormous magical power, and moreover, it was a magical power that countered each other's attributes, how could they not be shocked? In a panic, the 4 earth element students only had enough time to gather their own magical power and unleash it at full force. They didn't even have the time to use their magical skills, and could only unleash their magical power directly like Ya did. However, with their average magical power of 2 crowns, and the distance that their magical power could leave their bodies could only be calculated by feet, how could they possibly join hands to resist the enemy? The enormous green light beam bombarded them without holding back. When it was about to reach them, the green light suddenly spread out and turned into a green light screen before it slammed into the 4 earth element students. Without any suspense, the yellow of the earth element and the gray of the earth element were instantly engulfed by the enormous green light screen. The 4 earth element students of Class 2 and Class 3 were directly bombarded and sent flying. If the green light hadn't spread out in an instant, and had instead bombarded them in the form of a light beam, perhaps these 4 students would have already evaporated from the face of the earth. Even so, each of them was invaded by the wood element magical power, and they wouldn't be able to continue fighting for a short period of time. For them, this competition was already over. In the distance, Jidong nodded slowly and said to himself, "You've made some progress in controlling your magical power." Ya snorted disdainfully and said, "Just because you guys can't block it, I've only used half of my strength." Ziqinxing shouted, "Stop talking nonsense. Rotation of the 5 elements, earth element defense." The 5 of them simultaneously took 2 steps forward, and the magical power of the 5 elements rotated once again. This time, the glaring green light turned yellow, and the magical power condensed from Ya's body was transferred to Su Li's body, which belonged to the earth element. The thick yellow magical power of the earth element instantly spread out, and the yellow light condensed into a giant Vajra shield that completely shielded the 5 of them. They even had to wait for another 2 seconds before the attacks of the students of Class 2 and Class 3 arrived. Ziqinxing was a little annoyed and muttered to himself, "Too cautious. If I had known that they would be so slow, I would have ended the battle directly." The 5 elements cycle array could not only superimpose and sublimate the mana of the 5 of them, but at the same time, with the support of the 5 elements cycle array, as long as their mana had not been exhausted, they would not need to gather at all. This was the most important point. With these 2 seconds they would be able to attack twice. The attacks of the 2 students of Class 2 and Class 3 were respectively, and a large fireball and a golden blade of light. These attacks were combined with the attacks of the other 16 students, respectively. These attacks were equivalent to the attacks of A. These attacks were from water and wood, respectively from water, and from wood from fire from water. Element from 16. Of 9 of the element, and the power from the combined element 2. The wood. 1. The yang element magical power. 1 was. And Chen Cheng. The giant Vajra shield was like a towering mountain, easily devouring the 2 attacks. Zi Qinxing shouted again, cycle of the 5 elements, 3rd fire, attack. Finally, it was time for him to show his might. As the strongest among the 5 male students, his control over magical power and the amount of magical power he could control were much greater than the others. With just 1 step, Zi Qinxing had moved to the front. He raised his right hand and launched 2 palms in a row. As he deliberately showed off, 2 dense flames turned the entire battlefield into a sea of fire. The flames pressed towards the students of Class 2 and Class 3 like raging waves crashing against the shore. At this time, the 16 students had just completed their first attack. They couldn't finish condensing their magical power again. The sea of fire stopped 1 meter away from the students of Class 2 and Class 3. Zi Qinxing said proudly, "Do you still want to continue?" His voice was clear and loud, filled with pride. However, at this moment, not a single person dared to refute him. Not even Zhu Rong could. If it was said that Ji Dong had defeated Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian with his own strength, and the students and teachers would only be afraid of him, then what the 5 male students of Class 1 had done could no longer be described with strength. The yin-yang crown on top of each of their heads clearly showed the strength of their magical power. However, it was precisely because of this that the 5 students of Class 2 and Class 3 were able to unleash a great power that even the teachers at the scene did not have the confidence to resist. Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian were completely dumbfounded. At this moment, it seemed that the award list they had designed was simply a joke. With the strength that the male students of Class 1 had displayed, how could the results they had achieved in the Almonds Mountain trial be compared to the other classes? Zi Qinxing said in a clear voice, "The reason why we were the last to retreat from the Almonds Mountain trial was because the location of our trial was not below the 1-kilometer mark set by Department Head Xianyuan, nor was it around 500 meters like the other classes. Our trial location was around 1,500 meters, and the magical beasts we faced were all at the 5 and 6 crown level. After the volcano erupted, a large number of powerful magical beasts rushed out from the top of the mountain. In order to protect us, Teacher Ji Dong let us retreat first. He blocked all the beasts for us by himself, and that was the reason why we were the last to retreat from the Almonds Mountain. Although I don't know what happened after that made Teacher Ji Dong rush back today, I can completely imagine what kind of danger he faced in a situation where he faced such a large number of high-level magical beasts. In the entire process of our retreat, we did not encounter a single high-level magical beast and safely escaped. Our lives were saved by Teacher Ji Dong, and I dare say that Teacher Ji Dong is not any weaker than any teacher in the academy. The crystal cores we obtained from hunting magical beasts on the Almonds Mountain are all in Qin Sixuan's hands. Because she took the initiative to stay behind to help Teacher Ji Dong fight against the magical beasts, we were not able to get them back in time. However, Teacher Xianyuan did not listen to our explanations. Our class is the strongest. Zi Qinxing's words were powerful and resonant. The rims of his eyes were already somewhat red from excitement. After coming to Blazing Academy, this was the first time he felt like a genius again. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, he completed the originally impossible trial. Right now, his heart was filled with pride. Ji Dong's expression was still so calm, without any change from Zi Qinxing's words. But right now, the gazes that the students looked at him with were no longer fearful, but filled with passion. This exchange of pointers just now was completely Ji Dong's victory as a teacher. Who would dare say that their ability to teach students was stronger than Ji Dong's? Even Zhurong couldn't. Which student didn't wish to possess formidable strength? Zhurong returned to his senses, speaking in a low voice. The first grade students have already used their strength to tell us the results of this time's Almonds Mountain trial. All previous awards and evaluations are invalid, and I have the authority to send them back to the first grade for re-examination. At the same time, starting from today, the teacher in charge of the first grade's Class 1, Ji Dong, will be promoted to the first grade's teaching director, in charge of arranging the teaching work of the first grade students. Due to a major mistake in his work, teacher Xianyuan Xian will be relieved of his position as the head of the gung metal department, and teacher Tang Ilian will still be the teachers in charge of the second and third grade. Zhurong was still as swift and decisive as before. With just a few words, he had already solved all the problems. No one would object to Ji Dong's promotion, and the demotion of Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian would not only not make them resent, but would instead make them feel grateful. Zhurong was Ji Dong's teacher, and by saying this, he had already fulfilled the contract on behalf of Ji Dong. It should be known that before, Xianyuan Xian, Tang Ilian and Ji Dong had wagered that they would let him do whatever he wanted with them, and being demoted would undoubtedly be the best solution. Furthermore, Zhurong's decision had also made it very difficult for the two of them to propose to leave the academy. Of course, at this moment, Xianyuan Xian and Tang Ilian were still in a daze, and didn't have the time to think about these things. Even if he had been defeated by Ji Dong with a single strike, the blow to Xianyuan Xian wouldn't be as big as this. He was most confident in his teaching ability, however. He had been mercilessly trampled by the 5 male students of Class 1. He didn't even have the slightest chance. This was a complete victory of 5 against 20 in a situation where the magic power levels of the two sides were close. Unfortunately, no one would sympathize with the losers. The teachers and students who had watched this competition didn't want to leave for a long time. In their minds, they were all replaying what had just happened. The 5 male students of Class 1 rushed towards Hyoheim amidst the cheers. They weren't afraid of Ji Dong's anger, and grabbed his arms and legs, directly throwing him into the air. Teacher Ji Dong, long live! Chen Sichuan quietly stood aside. At this time, she suddenly found that on Ji Dong's face, there was a trace of a smile that she hadn't seen for a long time. In an instant, 2 streams of water instantly gushed into Chen Sichuan's eyes, and she tightly pursed her lips. He finally smiled. Although it wasn't because of me, he finally smiled. Ji Dong, do you know how much I've wanted to see you smile from the bottom of your heart? Zhurong waved his hand and said, "All right, everyone can leave now. Ji Dong, come to my office." When he said the last sentence, his tone was even a bit anxious. Ji Dong was released by the students, but he didn't leave with Zhurong. He said, "Teacher, I'm afraid that I'll have to come to you later. I promised my students that I would treat them to a celebratory meal." Zhurong was stunned for a second, and the anxiety in his eyes was gradually replaced by gratification. He smiled and nodded. "No matter how late you come back, come to me." "Okay." Ji Dong bowed and watched Zhurong leave. At the same time, the students of Class 1 had already started cheering again. Jin Sha, who was from the water of Gui, asked excitedly, "Teacher Ji Dong, what are you going to treat us to?" Ji Dong paused for a second, then said, "This you can choose." Although he had been in Blazing Fire City for quite a long time, he didn't know much about this city. Zichen Xing grinned and said, "We've done so well, Teacher Ji Dong, you'll have to pay a lot today. I think we should go to Stupid Rich Restaurant." Stupid Rich Restaurant? What's that? Ji Dong asked confusedly. Such a tacky name, could it be some high-class restaurant? Hearing Ji Dong's words, everyone instantly fell into an awkward silence. Except for Chen Sichuan, who was silently wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes, the other 9 students popped out their eyes and stared at Ji Dong, as if they were looking at an alien. "What's wrong? Why are you all looking at me like that?" Ji Dong asked curiously. Xian Wu blinked her eyes and said, "Teacher Ji Dong, you can't be serious, can you? You don't even know Stupid Rich Restaurant?" Ji Dong shook his head and said, I don't know, what's with such a tacky name? My God, you really don't even know Stupid Rich Restaurant? Zi Chen-shing said in disbelief. Ji Dong snorted coldly and said, Do I really need to know? Zi Chen-shing smiled bitterly and said, All right, I give up. Stupid Rich Restaurant can be considered a merchant guild, the largest merchant guild on the continent. It's said that Stupid Rich Restaurant's assets are equivalent to 10 years of national treasury income of the continent's 5 great empires. This merchant guild has already existed for 400 to 500 years, spanning hotels, transportation, resources, forging, construction, and many other industries. Almost as long as it's something that makes money, the most legendary thing is that the previous generations of Stupid Rich Restaurant's bosses were all 9-crown sovereign experts. This is unique in the business world, and also the most important reason why Stupid Rich Restaurant can stand for hundreds of years without collapsing. Hearing Zi Chen-shing's explanation, Ji Dong nodded thoughtfully. There was actually such a merchant guild. Stupid Rich Restaurant, the name sounded very tacky, but it actually stood on the continent for hundreds of years. It had an astronomical amount of wealth, and it also had a sovereign expert as its boss. All these added together gave this merchant guild many mysterious colors. Then let's go to this Stupid Rich Restaurant. You should be talking about the hotel. Zi Chen-shing said, It's the hotel, the largest hotel in our blazing fire city. The Stupid Rich Restaurant's headquarters in our Southern Fire Empire is also in Blazing Fire City. I heard that our Blazing Academy is also sponsored by Stupid Rich Restaurant. Leaving Blazing Academy, there was no longer the attention of the stars surrounding the moon. 10 students clustered around Ji Dong as they walked towards the center of Blazing Fire City. Ji Dong had never carefully looked at this city before. Walking on the streets, looking at the red and blue buildings in great numbers, he couldn't help but sigh. When he first came to this world, he was in Blazing Fire City in the southwest of the Southern Fire Empire. Even though the size of the city and Blazing Fire City in front of him were worlds apart, the style of the same country was so similar. Unknowingly, it had already been more than 10 years since he came to this world. All the experiences of his previous life had long since been forgotten, but everything of this life was deeply branded in the depths of his soul. Especially that woman who captivated his soul, she even surpassed the wine he loved the most in his previous life. Without a passionate love, one wouldn't understand the joys and sorrows of it. Ji Dong didn't want to return to his original world at all. What he wanted was to be together with her, no matter if it was in heaven, on earth, or in the human world, or in the ghost world. Teacher Ji Dong, look, that Stupid Rich Restaurant. Chapter 361. Teacher Ji Dong, look, that's the Stupidly Rich. Ji Dong was led by a group of students to the center of Blazing Fire City. Looking in the direction that Zi Chen-shing was pointing, he immediately saw a landmark building. This was a strangely shaped building. From the outside, it looked like a stadium he had seen in his previous life. It was circular in design, and from any angle, only a part of the building's arc could be seen. The building was completely golden, as if it was plated with a layer of gold. It sparkled under the sunlight, giving off the feeling of a nouveau riche. Zi Chen-shing smiled. Teacher, this is the Stupidly Rich Hotel. This architectural style is the usual style of the Stupidly Rich Chamber of Commerce. It is said that all the buildings under the Stupidly Rich Chamber of Commerce, if you look down from the sky, you will see the shape of a huge gold coin. The Stupidly Rich Chamber of Commerce has never hidden the fact that they are rich, showing off their wealth everywhere. But I don't think they are stupid, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to pass down for so many years. Teacher, you have to be mentally prepared, the expenses here are very expensive. Ji Dong smiled. Anyway, I don't have to pay. This time we went to the Almonds Mountain to hunt so many magical beasts. There are plenty of crystal cores. Any one of them should be enough for you to eat. When we go back, I will distribute the crystal cores to you. Hearing what Ji Dong said, The students couldn't help but stop in their tracks. Everyone looked at Ji Dong in surprise, and Ho Xian said, "Teacher Ji Dong, didn't you say that all the crystal cores obtained from the trials have to be confiscated? They all belong to the academy, you." Ji Dong was also stunned and said, "There is such a rule?" Chen Xishuan laughed. "My teacher Ji Dong, does the academy not need money to operate? What can the students do with the small amount of tuition fees they pay?" Ji Dong said, "Don't worry, we've obtained quite a lot of life crystals this time. We'll just hand over a portion of it to the academy later, and the rest will be distributed to each of you according to your attribute. You're all still young, and your cultivation has just started on the right track. It's time to save up money. The poor study, the rich learn martial arts. We magicians need strong financial backing to support us. You've all heard the price of magic weapons, as well as magic skill books. They're all astronomical figures." Hearing Ji Dong's words, the students couldn't help cheering at the same time. One had to know that the crystals they obtained in this trial were all 5th and 6th tier. Each one was priceless. Xian Wu came to Chen Xishuan's side and chuckled. "Xishuan, have you already succeeded? Teacher Ji Dong is already yours?" Chen Xishuan blushed and said softly, "Don't talk nonsense." As she spoke, she took out a veil from her storage magic tool and put it on her face. Coming out to eat was different from going to the trial. On the way to the trial, they had to walk on a small path in the wilderness, and not many people could be seen. However, this was the city center, and with her stunning appearance as the #1 beauty in the world, it was too easy for her to attract trouble. Seeing Chen Xishuan's stunning appearance covered by a light veil, Ji Dong was momentarily dazed. In that instant, he seemed to see his flaming bar again. It was just as perfect, and it was also covered by a veil. Once he thought of the flaming bar, Ji Dong felt a sharp pain in his heart. "Teacher Ji Dong, you don't look well. Are you all right?" Zi Qinxing stood beside Ji Dong, and was the first to notice that something was wrong. Ji Dong came back to his senses, and forced himself to calm down. He said, "It's nothing, I just feel like drinking." Zi Qinxing smiled. "No problem, we will drink with you to our heart's content tonight." As they spoke, they had already arrived in front of the stupid rich hotel. As they got closer, they could feel the luxurious atmosphere of this hotel. The circular hotel was at least 20 meters tall, and had at least 5 floors. This was extremely rare in any place. Even in the continent's #1 city, the Central Plains city, there weren't many. It was already past lunchtime, and it was already afternoon. However, there were still 2 rows of hostesses standing in front of the magnificent door. These girls looked to be less than 20 years old, and they were slender and beautiful. Seeing Ji Dong's group walk over, 2 hostesses immediately walked up. Although their appearances couldn't compare to Chen Xishuan's, and even couldn't compare to Xian Wu and Jin Sha's, the 5 male students all stared at them. The hostesses were all wearing golden dresses, and their average height was about 1.7 meters. Their dresses had no sleeves, and their fair and round arms were exposed. The hem of their dresses was a little above their knees, revealing their slender calves. Their long red hair was combed into a ponytail, and they could definitely be counted as above average. The most attractive thing was that these 2 hostesses who walked up looked exactly the same. They were actually a pair of twins. It wasn't the first time that Ji Dong had seen such a luxurious place, and he had seen at least 20 hostesses standing outside the door. However, it was the first time that all the hostesses were twins. The 20 hostesses in front of him were actually made up of 10 pairs of twins. Not to mention the problem of money, it was not easy to find twins. Apart from the males, they also had to choose girls with above-average figures and look. It would be difficult to find so many twins in Blazing Fire City. But here, they were only responsible for welcoming the guests. How could this not make the hot-blooded male students stare at them? This stupid rich merchant union was really rich. However, all of this only made Ji Dong's eyes flash with a trace of surprise. "Humph, There isn't a single good man. Jean Shah snorted angrily. Shu Si giggled and said, Shah, are you jealous? Which girl in our class do you like? This is suspicious of jealousy. Chen Sichuan's gaze was always on Ji Dong. Hearing this, she smiled and said, Shah, you can't generalize. At this time, the two hostesses had already arrived in front of Ji Dong. The girl on the left said respectfully, Mister, how can I help you? Ji Dong said, Are there any private rooms? There are 11 of us. The young lady smiled and nodded. Yes, please follow me, honored guests. As they spoke, the two girls took a few steps to the sides and gave way to the middle of the path. They each extended a hand and led the crowd into the stupid rich hotel. Su Li asked Zi Qinxing in a low voice, Aren't they afraid that we don't have money to pay the bill? We don't look like officials or nobles. Zi Qinxing chuckled and said, You don't know about this. I've heard that the stupid rich hotel has a tradition. No matter what kind of guest it is, they will never refuse to receive them. Even if you are a beggar, as long as you come here, they will definitely let you in to eat. Su Li was stunned and said, What if we don't have money to pay the bill? Zi Qinxing laughed coldly and said, Everyone is valuable. It doesn't matter if you don't have money to pay the bill. Even if they know that you don't have money, they will let you finish this free meal first. If you don't have money to pay the bill, then someone else will continue to receive you. No matter how much you spend, you will have to pay the same amount of money here before you can leave. Simple things like washing the dishes and dishes. If you can't even do that, they will definitely have a way. However, in this world, only the stupid rich hotel would dare to do that. Entering the lobby of the stupid rich hotel, everyone felt like they were dazzled. It was said that money was tacky and that gold and jade were not elegant enough. However, when gold and jade reached a certain level, it also had an extremely shocking effect. All the decorations in the hall were the same as the outside, all golden. Huge magic crystal lamps were scattered all over the 10-meter-tall dome, as if they were free of charge. The magnificent light radiated in all directions, bringing a strong sense of dazzle to the eyes. In the huge lobby, there were several huge screens that divided the area. At the very center was a huge empty space. The 10 elemental totem patterns were engraved here, forming a circle. These totem patterns were not as simple as ordinary drawings. They were all pieced together using level 1 essence crystals. Although a class 1 life crystal nucleus wasn't worth much, each one of them was 4 to 5 square meters in size. How many class 1 life crystals would it take to assemble all 10 of them? Adding all 10 of them together would cost at least a few 100,000 gold coins, and this was just a decoration. Even Ji Dong couldn't help but secretly praise in his heart. As expected of a big chamber of commerce that had been established for 400 to 500 years. Just from this hotel alone, he could see many problems. Previously, he didn't care how much money he spent, but now he was a little nervous. What kind of expenses would be brought by such a decoration? Under the guidance of the 2 twin waitresses, they walked into a private room on the first floor. As soon as they entered the room, the feeling suddenly changed. It was no longer that luxurious feeling that made people unable to look directly at it. Instead, it was filled with warmth. On the floor, there was a long white carpet that was several inches thick. It was soft and comfortable to step on. Although the decorations in the room were still luxurious, all the colors were chosen to be warm. Apart from the dining table for 15 people, there was also a huge sofa made of unknown material. Every part of the room was extremely exquisite, giving off a sense of elegance and elegance. Everyone sat down. Ji Dong naturally sat on the main seat. The soft but very supporting high-back chair was very comfortable to sit on. Distinguished guests, please wait a moment. The 2 waitresses retreated, and another young lady walked in from outside. Her clothes were slightly different from the previous waitress. She wore the same short golden skirt, but there was a large pattern of a silver coin on her chest, embroidered with silver thread. The young lady walked to Ji Dong's side. Under everyone's shocked gazes, she directly knelt down beside him and handed over the thin crystal-carved menu to Ji Dong. Teacher Ji Dong, this is the kneeling service. Don't be surprised. Chen Sichuan's voice sounded in Ji Dong's ears. Ji Dong glanced at her before taking the menu from the waitress. Although he hadn't been to any luxurious places in this life, he had almost always lived in such places in his previous life. How could he not know the kneeling service? The students were surprised to find that when they walked in, they had a dazzling feeling. However, their teacher, Ji Dong, seemed to have blended into the surroundings the moment he entered the hotel. He didn't deliberately do anything, but his actions were elegant and calm. Together with the white couple's clothes that he and Chen Sichuan wore, he looked even more noble. Ji Dong glanced at the crystal menu in his hand and saw that there were many zeros on the price. He didn't stop and directly handed the menu back to the waitress. Please help us make the arrangements. We are all young people, so we can have more dishes. Also, bring a few bottles of your special liquor. 30-year-old brandy or whiskey will do. All right. The waitress took the menu and took 2 steps back on her knees. Only then did she smile and stand up. She said respectfully, "Honored guests, do you have any food restrictions?" Everyone hurriedly shook their heads. Ji Dong waved his hand gracefully. Only then did the waitress leave and gently close the door. Teacher Ji Dong, you're lying. The moment the waitress left, the shrewish Xian Wu couldn't help but shout. Ji Dong said, "How am I lying?" Xian Wu snorted and said, "You said it was your first time here. How can you be so familiar with the first time? Ask everyone. You don't look like you're coming here for the first time. It's like you're at home." Ji Dong smiled helplessly and said, "We're here to enjoy the service. Why wouldn't we be at ease? Do we have to restrain ourselves?" It was impossible to completely throw away the things left behind in his previous life. As the god of wine, coming to this kind of place was no different from returning home to him. Zi Qinxing sat on the other side of Ji Dong. He lowered his voice and said, "Teacher Ji Dong, you asked them to prepare the highest quality dishes. Won't it be too expensive?" Ji Dong shook his head and said, "No matter how high class a hotel is, the price of the food will still have a certain limit. The only thing that doesn't have a limit is the liquor. As long as we control the price of the liquor, there won't be any problems. At worst, I'll just have you all stay here to wash the dishes." How could the conversation between Zi Qinxing and Su Li escape his ears? Not long after, the dishes were served one after another. Without exception, they were all exquisite delicacies. Forget about eating them before, they had not even seen most of them before. Among the students, only Chen Sichuan's expression did not change. Right now, she only cared about one question, and that was when would she be able to make Ji Dong fall in love with her. As for what to eat and where to eat, it did not matter to her at all. This meal lasted from afternoon to evening. It could be said that they had eaten lunch and dinner together. Under Ji Dong's control, the students did not drink much. Most of the strong alcohol entered Ji Dong's mouth. The mellow heat of the 30-year-old brandy soothed his stinging heart. The numbing feeling caused his gaze to gradually become blurry. During this meal, everyone was in high spirits. However, Ji Dong spoke very little. Most of the time, he was silently reminiscing about the past. "Give us the bill. Sir, would you like to pay with gold coins or crystal cores?" Chapter 362. The waiter handed over the bill and asked Ji Dong what he wanted to use to pay the bill. Ji Dong was a little surprised and said, "You guys can use essence crystals to pay the bill here? That saves us a lot of trouble." Chen Sichuan stood up and took the bill, saying, "I'll pay the bill." The waiter smiled and said, "It's a total of 7,300 gold coins. If you want to use essence crystals, you can use any rank 4 essence crystals." So expensive? The one who spoke was Zi Qinxing. Although they all knew that silly rich man was expensive, they didn't expect it to be this expensive. What did 7,000 gold coins mean? It was enough for a normal family to live for 20 years and have a surplus, and it was a big family with more than 10 people. Hearing this price, everyone woke up from their drunken stupor. Chen Sichuan didn't take out the essence crystals. With a flip of her wrist, a clear green card appeared in her palm. The card was carved out of jade, and there was an image of an azure dragon carved on it, shining with green light. Seeing the card in Chen Sichuan's hand, the waiter's expression instantly changed. He respectfully took the card with both hands and said, "So it's Azure Dragon VIP, I'm really sorry for the slow treatment." Chen Sichuan smiled and shook her head, saying, "Please help us pay the bill." "Yes." The waiter hurried out. This Azure Dragon VIP card was naturally given to them by Chen Sichuan's father. There were only 5 VIP cards of this level in the entire Silly Rich Man Chamber of Commerce, and they were given to the emperors of the 5 empires. With this card, they could enjoy a 20% discount. In other words, they only needed to pay a little more than 1,000 gold coins. Ji Dong naturally wouldn't be courteous with Chen Sichuan. She still had a large number of essence crystals, and any one of them was enough to pay the bill. Everyone walked out of the private room and was about to leave the Silly Rich Man Hotel when suddenly, a few staff members quickly walked over and blocked their way. "Distinguished guests, please wait a moment." After arriving at the Silly Rich Man Hotel, everyone saw a man for the first time. Looking at his golden suit, he was at least in charge. He brought 2 female waitresses and stopped Ji Dong's group. "What's the matter?" Ji Dong asked calmly. The manager replied politely, "I'm the manager of the Foolish Rich Hotel in Blazing City. It's like this, a VIP is about to arrive at our Foolish Rich Hotel. In order to welcome this VIP, can you please leave for now? After our VIP goes upstairs, you can leave. We'll provide you with fruit platters and drinks. It'll only take half an hour." Although he spoke politely, his meaning was very clear. A distinguished guest was about to arrive. If Ji Dong and the others went out at this time, it was likely to affect the guest's entry into the hotel. Therefore, he asked them to wait for the distinguished guest to go upstairs before leaving. Xian Wu said, "We are here to spend, are we not, honored guests? Is our time not time?" The smile on the manager's face did not diminish. He said, "I'm really sorry, but this guest is too important to our hotel. So, no matter what, please stay a little longer." Xian Wu snorted, "We want to leave now, what can you do?" She was about to go outside. The person in charge moved his feet slightly to block Xian Wu's path, and his face sank slightly as he said, "I'm truly sorry. No matter what, I can't allow you to disturb our distinguished guest." At this moment, his tone had clearly become much more forceful. At this moment, the attendant from Ji Dong's private room quickly walked up and whispered something into the ears of the person in charge of the first floor. Hearing her words, the expression of the person in charge eased up once again. His gaze landed on Chen Sichuan and he said with some surprise, "So it's the esteemed guests of the Azure Dragon Club. I'm really sorry for my lack of manners. However, can you please understand us? How about this, we'll waive the bill for everyone today, but please stay a little longer." Hearing the manager's words, even Ji Dong could not help but be surprised. It was obvious that Chen Sichuan's Green Dragon VIP card was a display of her status as a princess. Even the princess of the Eastern Wood Empire was not as important as the distinguished guest the manager was talking about. He was really curious, who could be so important? Chen Sichuan said indifferently, "I can't make the decision here, you'll have to ask him if he agrees." As she spoke, her eyes fell on Ji Dong. The manager's eyes immediately turned to Hyoheim, but before he could say anything, Ji Dong had already said coldly, "Move." If it was in the past, perhaps he would not have made a fuss, he would only have waited a little longer. However, he had been thinking about the flaming bar, and his heart was aching. He was already impatient when someone blocked his way, and a layer of cold, deathly stillness emanated from his body. The manager's expression changed slightly, and he said, "Mister, I've already tried my best. Please don't make things difficult for me. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to force you all to stay here for a while." Ji Dong did not waste any more words with him, and directly walked up to him. The manager's expression darkened, and he raised his right hand at lightning speed, grabbing at Ji Dong's chest. This person looked to be in his 40s, and he had a solemn aura. Although his right hand was fast, there was a strong sense of weight to it. It was obvious that he was an earth element devil master, and his cultivation was definitely not weak. Humph! Ji Dong snorted coldly, and the manager felt as if something had exploded in his brain. His vision immediately turned white, and his right hand naturally slowed down. Even the students standing beside Ji Dong could not see how he moved. They only saw a flash of light, and the golden-robed man's body was sent flying like a cannonball. Amidst the shocked cries of the waiters, the golden-robed man's body broke a few tables before he finally stopped. His body was already in a mess, and no matter how good the fabric of his clothes was, it could not withstand such a collision. Many parts of his clothes were already torn. Ji Dong, on the other hand, acted as if he had done something that couldn't be any more simple. He walked out with his head held high. Zi Qinxing and the others looked at each other. Their teacher, Ji Dong, was full of admiration for him. He actually dared to make a move in a place like the Foolish Rich Hotel. As expected of a real man. If the Foolish Rich Chamber of Commerce made a move, even the 5 great empires would have to be extremely cautious. The golden-robed man struggled to get up from the ground. With a cry, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His injuries were not serious. Ji Dong's attack was purely a physical attack, and he did not use any magic. But even so, at least one of his ribs was broken. A strong yellow light instantly shone from the golden-robed man's body. There were 6 crowns on his white crown. He was only the manager of the first floor of the hotel, but he was actually a 6-crown demon master. Seeing this, Zi Qinxing and the others could not help but suck in a cold breath. It looked like it would not be easy to walk out of the Foolish Rich Hotel today. Ji Dong glared coldly at the golden-robed man and said, "If I were you, I would not attack again. If I attack again, it will not just be a broken rib." "You!" The golden-robed man, who was about to attack again, stopped abruptly. He could clearly feel the immense pressure that Ji Dong was giving him. But could he really not attack? He only paused for a moment, and he was already rushing towards Ji Dong again. After the death of the flaming bar, Ji Dong's already proud personality had become even more extreme. This golden-robed man provoked him a second time. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and it surged out like a tidal wave. The students standing behind Ji Dong all felt a chill run down their spines. Other than Chen Xishuan, everyone else hurriedly retreated. "Teacher Ji Dong, don't kill people so casually," Chen Xishuan reminded Ji Dong in a low voice. Ji Dong ignored Chen Xishuan's suggestion. If he had scruples about everything, then he would not be Ji Dong. A scorching golden light shone in that instant, and a powerful elemental suppression exploded forth like it was crushing dry weeds. With Ji Dong as the center, the temperature in the air instantly increased, and the tables closest to him even began to show signs of melting. Just like when Xianyuan Xin faced off against Ji Dong, the sudden release of this tyrannical suppression caused the person in charge to come to a screeching halt. Although he was loyal to his duty, no one would joke around with their lives. His gaze on Ji Dong instantly turned into one of shock. A soft sound of surprise attracted Ji Dong's attention, causing his right hand, which had been about to raise to attack, to pause. In the next moment, Ji Dong's expression instantly turned grim. He could only feel an enormous spiritual power, like a landslide or a tsunami, surging towards him from every pore. The strangest thing was that none of the students not far behind him reacted. Clearly, they did not feel anything. This was the first time that Ji Dong had encountered such a spiritual power. It was vast and enormous, but it did not disperse. Its vastness only surrounded Ji-dong, and when it attacked like Hyoheim, it was incomparably sharp, as if it had trapped Ji-dong in a cage and pierced through the cracks of the cage with a spear. Ji-dong's spiritual power was already extremely powerful, but this spiritual power that had suddenly appeared was not any weaker than his. In fact, it was even slightly stronger. However, in terms of spiritual power, this vast and enormous aura was even stronger than the three-legged golden crow. How could Ji-dong's expression not turn grim? Naturally, Ji-dong would not allow his opponent to suppress his spiritual power. The soul vortex in his mind spun rapidly, and the enormous spiritual undulations instantly exploded like his fire attribute. In an instant, it had completely dispersed the spiritual power that had invaded his body. The spiritual power could only restrict him from the surroundings, but it was absolutely impossible for it to break into his spiritual domain. Chen Sichuan stood beside Ji-dong, and could clearly see that Ji-dong's eyes had already turned intense silver. She was very familiar with Ji-dong, and had also completed the soul fusion with Ji-dong. She could vaguely feel what he was going through at this moment. She immediately went behind Ji-dong without hesitation, closed her eyes, and released her spiritual power directly into Ji-dong's mind. At this moment, if Ji-dong had the slightest evil intention, he only needed to slightly control his spiritual power, and he did not even need to counterattack, and Chen Sichuan's soul would instantly shatter. The strength of her soul was far weaker than Ji-dong's, not to mention that there was a vast and enormous opponent in the spiritual world right now. When Ji-dong discovered that Chen Sichuan had poured her spiritual power into him, he was instantly shocked. At this moment, he was not repelling Chen Sichuan, but he was worried. It should be known that a battle between souls was even more dangerous than a battle of magic skills. If one was not careful, it was very likely that one would become an idiot. If Chen Sichuan did not release her soul out of her body, then even if her opponent wanted to pressure her, he could at most suppress her spiritual power. However, if she released her spiritual power like this, the situation would be completely different. Even if she came out, she might not be able to return. In his shock, Ji-dong reacted immediately. He could not care about resisting the opponent's spiritual power with all his strength, and hurriedly separated a portion of his spiritual power to envelop Chen Sichuan's spiritual power in an instant, and pulled it into his mind, protecting her from the opponent's influence. In this way, Ji-dong's spiritual power naturally weakened a lot in the process of fighting against his opponent. There was no fanciful way to fight against the spiritual power of the opponent, and under this situation, the opponent's turbulent spiritual power immediately turned into countless sharp blades that rushed into Ji-dong's spiritual realm in an attempt to suppress him. However, what Ji-dong's opponent did not expect was that at this moment, Ji-dong's soul had once again merged with Chen Sichuan's soul. Ji-dong felt a little helpless about the fusion. It seemed that he had just decided a few days ago that no matter what, he could no longer carry out the soul fusion with her. However, at this moment, everything seemed to be logical, and there was no time for hesitation at all. Both of their souls had completely merged into one. It was really easy for Chen Sichuan's defenseless spiritual power to merge with Ji-dong's soul. As long as Ji-dong did not directly resist, it could be completed almost instantaneously. The spiritual power that was previously suppressed by his opponent's invasion instantly showed an exponential increase. It was still a spiritual explosion of the fire attribute, but this time, the power was several times stronger than before. Not only did the spiritual power between Ji-dong and Chen Sichuan complement each other, there was also the characteristic of wood giving birth to fire. The instant the soul fusion brought about a wonderful feeling, Ji-dong almost lost his mind. Even the pain in his heart seemed to have faded a lot at this moment. That surprised voice sounded again, and the previously vast spiritual power receded like the tide. Just this control alone was not inferior to Ji-dong's, and he could control it freely. Ji Dong said to Chen Sichuan through their souls, "There's a change in the situation. Bring everyone back to the academy first, I'll stay here." "No, I'm not leaving. There's no point in going back to the academy. If even you can't deal with it, even if Dean Zhurong comes, it'll be useless," Chen Sichuan said stubbornly. Ji Dong said, "Can your eternal armor be used again? I'm afraid that's impossible. Without a long period of replenishment of life magic, it's already useless." At this moment, accompanied by a series of footsteps, a group of people walked over from the direction of the gate. The leader was a big fatty. Chapter 363. Just as Ji Dong asked Chen Sichuan to leave with the others, a group of people came from the door. There were dozens of people in this group, and most of them were dressed in golden attire. The leader was a fatty with a surprised look on his face, and the people following behind him were in awe and trepidation. Ji Dong's gaze instantly fell on the big fatty. This fatty was more than 2 meters tall, and his skin was fair and rosy. At first glance, it was hard to tell his age. He looked like he was in his 30s, but he also looked like he was in his 40s or 50s. His figure could only be described with diameter. The thickest part of his body was probably more than 1.5 meters in diameter. Although he was 2 meters tall, he looked like a huge ball. The big fatty was the only person who was not dressed in golden attire. A huge white robe covered his huge body. In front of this white robe, there was a pattern of a huge gold coin with a diameter of 1 meter. The gold coin was inlaid with 10 different colored gems to form 10 different totems. It was exquisite and lifelike. What was funny was that the fat fatty was wearing a gold chain as thick as a baby's arm around his sturdy neck. Below the gold chain, there was a fist-sized jade picio. The meaning of the picio seemed to be to attract wealth and treasures, only entering but not exiting. In addition to this extremely tacky decoration, there was also a huge jade ring on the ring finger of his right hand. It was glistening with green light, and it was actually emerald level. From his appearance alone, this big fatty looked like a nouveau riche. When he walked, the fat on his body swayed. The others behind him didn't even have a straight back. They all followed closely behind him with their bodies half bent. The eyes of the big fatty and Ji Dong collided in the first moment. Ji Dong was calm and awe-inspiring, but the big fatty looked surprised. I thought it was some old thing who came to my place to be stupid and rich. Why is it a little guy?" the big fatty said in surprise. When the few people in golden attire behind him saw the mess in front of them, their faces instantly turned pale. The person in charge of the first floor, who wanted to attack Hyoheim but did not dare to do so because of the attribute suppression, had an extremely ugly expression. He hurriedly restrained his mana, took a few steps forward, and bowed 90 degrees to the side. His body was actually trembling slightly. The big fatty did not even look at him. He took large strides and walked in the direction of Ji Dong. A strong, sharp aura instantly soared, and with every step he took, the pressure on Ji Dong increased a little. However, the pressure was limited to Ji Dong alone. The students behind Ji Dong did not feel it at all. The big fatty walked all the way until he was about 10 meters away from Ji Dong. Ji Dong did not retreat at all under the extremely sharp pressure, but he could not be as calm as the fat fatty. A strong extreme yang fire rose, and the golden flames seemed to be blown by a strong wind, fluttering and trembling violently behind him. All the pressure disappeared in the next moment, and the flames on Ji Dong's body instantly returned to normal. The big fatty's sharp gaze suddenly became calm, and only now did Ji Dong have the energy to notice the special features of the fat fatty's facial features. Just like his body, the fat fatty's face was almost spherical, especially the 2 pieces of fat on his cheeks, which squeezed his small eyes into a narrow slit. The fat fatty did not have any hair, and on his large bald head, there were even wrinkles of flesh and his large earlobes. His huge body was like a mountain of flesh. At this moment, his aura was restrained, and there was a trace of a warm smile on his face, as if amiability could bring wealth. "Kid, why are you so stupid and rich to attack?" the fat fatty asked with a smile. Looking at the smile on his face, Ji Dong felt a chill run down his back, as if he had seen an old fox. To everyone's surprise, Ji Dong's answer was extremely firm, and he said, "I did attack, what can you do?" Chen Sichuan was the only one who could somewhat understand Ji Dong's thoughts. He had always been the type of person who would grow stronger when facing strong opponents. He would never back down no matter how strong the enemy was. This pride in his chest was the source of his cultivation growth. If he lost this drive, he would not be Ji Dong. This time was different from when he faced the three-legged golden crow. The three-legged golden crow was Ji Dong's own initiative, so he was a bit rash. However, this time, trouble appeared on its own, so Ji Dong would not back down, no matter how strong the opponent was. The fatty chuckled and said, "So you're saying that you're provoking me?" Ji Dong snorted coldly and his eyebrows raised. His cold eyes were filled with some contempt and disdain. He did not need to answer, and his attitude was already very clear. "Good, very good. I haven't met such an arrogant boy for a long time." The fat fatty was still smiling, but Ji Dong was surprised that he did not attack again. Instead, he said to the person in charge of the first floor who was bowing to him, "There must be a reason for everything. Tell me, what is going on?" Hearing the fat fatty's question, the person in charge of the first floor suddenly became even paler. He took a few steps forward and came to the fat fatty's side, and said something with a trembling voice. The fat fatty's smiling face suddenly became cold, and he said, "Restricting the freedom of the guests, very good." The people behind him all looked pale and sweaty. The fat fatty's small eyes flickered coldly, and after glancing at everyone, his eyes fell back on Ji Dong and he said, "All the hotel management staff will be fined 3 months' salary, and the salary will be evenly distributed to the ordinary staff." Yes. These foolishly rich hotel management staff were obviously relieved. The fat fatty said, "Do you know why the punishment is so light? That's because of your mistake, but I found this young man. Boy, how about we talk?" Ji Dong said indifferently, "I don't think there's anything to talk about between us." The fat fatty laughed out loud and said, "But I don't think so. If I haven't guessed wrong, your name should be Ji Dong. What you're good at isn't just the extreme yang fire you're displaying right now, but also extreme yin fire. Your master is Blazing Academy's Dean Zhurong, your grandmaster is His Majesty Yin Zhaoyang, and your grandmaster's wife is His Majesty Tai Yin Zhaorong. Am I right?" Hearing the fat fatty's words, Ji Dong's hostile gaze immediately turned to astonishment, and he said, "How did you know?" The fat fatty grinned and said, "How could I not know? I just came back from your grandmaster's place, and with extreme yang fire at your age, it would be strange if I didn't recognize you." The fat fatty's explanation made Ji Dong's expression completely relax. Grandmaster's friends naturally wouldn't be enemies. If they weren't friends, they wouldn't be so familiar with his situation. The fat fatty said, "How about we talk? Your grandmaster calling me here can be said to be 80% for you." The fat fatty brought up Yin Zhaoyang, and Ji Dong had no choice but to comply. He immediately nodded and said to Chen Sichuan, Zi Qinxing and the others, "You go back first, I'll leave later." Zi Qinxing and the others naturally wouldn't go against Ji Dong's wishes, but Chen Sichuan was an exception and said, "No, Teacher Ji Dong, I want to stay with you." The two's soul fusion hadn't ended, and through it she, Hyoheim, strongly expressed the uneasiness in her heart. This fatty gave her a very dangerous feeling. To be able to contend with Ji Dong in spiritual power, it was clear how powerful he was. His magic power was even more unfathomable. Ji Dong hesitated slightly, but finally nodded. Although he had already clearly rejected Chen Sichuan's feelings, he had to admit that Chen Sichuan had helped him in battle. Her soul fusion with Ji Dong and magic power could greatly increase Ji Dong's strength. Most importantly, the two of them seemed to have an invisible tacit understanding. Whenever Ji Dong needed help the most, Chen Xishuan would be there at the right time. Zi Qinxing and the other students went back first, leaving only Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan behind. The fat fatty waved the hotel's management staff away, and brought Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan directly upstairs. The stupid rich hotel wasn't just luxurious, it was huge. After the fat fatty brought the two of them up to the second floor, they followed the corridor inwards, and after a few turns they went downstairs again, passed through a large door, and arrived outside, but it wasn't outside the hotel. This was a wide open space, at least 1,000 square meters, surrounded by all kinds of precious plants. In the middle was an empty space, the ground was covered with thick granite, and the smooth ground gave off a watery luster. It was already evening, the sun was setting, and the evening glow was faintly fading away, replaced by darkness. The fat fatty walked to the center of the field, stopped, and turned around. Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan also stopped. The fat fatty looked at the two of them, smiled slightly, and said, "Previously, when I heard Brother Yin Chaoyang praising you, I was a little skeptical, but after the spiritual power competition with you, I had no choice but to believe it. If I'm not wrong, you two little fellows used the soul fusion method to disperse my spiritual attack. It really is a good method. In the collision of souls, even compared to Brother Yin Chaoyang, I am not inferior, but I didn't expect to almost suffer a loss at your hands. Let us get to know each other. I'm Zhou Xiaoxiao, the stupid rich chamber of commerce is my business." Although Ji Dong had already guessed that he was the big boss of the stupid rich chamber of commerce, it was still a little strange to hear him say it himself. This stupid rich chamber of commerce was not an ordinary existence, it was the #1 chamber of commerce in the world, rich enough to rival a country, and had a pivotal position in the entire radiant Five Elements continent. Previously, Zi Qinxing had also said that the president of the stupid rich chamber of commerce was a 9 crowns sovereign expert. There was no doubt that this fat fatty was telling Ji Dong their own strength. Zhou Xiaoxiao, this name really gave people a strange feeling. Such a huge body, but the name was called Xiaoxiao, the contrast was really too big. "Ji Dong boy, do you know why your grandmaster is looking for me?" Zhou Xiaoxiao's fat face still had a smile, but his eyes suddenly became sharp. Ji Dong shook his head. "Because your grandmaster wants me to fully support you. I already know what happened on the Holy Evil Island, it is really terrible. It is said that your woman sacrificed herself to give our radiant 5 Elements continent 5 years to prepare. From this point of view, I should indeed support you. However, I'm a person who believes in what I see and not what others say. So, if you want my support, you have to prove your strength to me." Ji Dong said coldly, "Then how do you want me to prove it?" Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Although I like prophecies the most, there is no doubt that as a devil master, you still rely on strength. To be honest, although your spiritual force surprised me, you caused trouble in a place like a hotel, which is a bit ungenerous, which I am not very satisfied with. How about this, you can use your magical beast mounts, as long as you can resist me for the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, I will agree with your Grandmaster's suggestion and support you unconditionally." "Okay." Ji Dong didn't hesitate at all and immediately agreed. In this short period of time, he had thought a lot. It was obvious that Yin Zhaoyang wanted this fatty to support him, not only because of his strength. A supreme master was indeed powerful, but it could not play a decisive role in the holy war between the two continents. Yin Zhaoyang hoped that Zhou Xiaoxiao could support him, which was the huge financial resources of the Silly Rich Merchant Association, and Ji Dong really needed this financial resources now. On the way back to Blazing Fire City, Ji Dong thought a lot, especially about the future when he was going to face the darkness of the 5 Elements continent. In his plan, he indeed needed a huge amount of financial resources to support him, otherwise he could not achieve his vision. In his original plan, this financial resources needed to be invested by many parties. With his relationship, He could at least mobilize part of the financial resources of the Devil Master Association and get some support from the Central Empire. After all, his elder brother was the current crown prince of the Central Empire, and his grandfather was the King Pingding. However, in this way, he could totally imagine that his grandfather would definitely bring up the old matter and let him take over as the King Pingding, which was something that Ji Dong could not agree to. Therefore, he had been a little conflicted in his heart. Coincidentally, Zhou Xiaoxiao came to him at this time. If he could get the full financial support of the Silly Rich Merchant Association, then the possibility of his plan succeeding would increase by at least 30%. Therefore, Ji Dong decided that no matter what, he must get the full support of this fatty. Straightforward, I like straightforward people. Ji Dong boy, do you know what was the first sentence that Big Brother Yin Zhaoyang said to me when he saw me? He said to me, "Little fatty, these few years I have accepted a grand disciple. His talent is even higher than yours. Now let me see how capable you, a boy who is more talented than me, are." You should know that when I was 56 years old, I had already broken through the 9 crowns, and was ranked first in the history of the Devil Master Association. Chapter 364. Breaking through to the 9 crowns at the age of 56, Zhou Xiaoxiao's words had a strong impact on both Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan. How old was Ji Dong's teacher, Zhu Rong? He was still working hard to break through to the 9th crown. Even a supreme expert like Yin Zhaoyang would only be able to break through to the 9th crown at the age of 80. The fact that this fatty could break through to the 9th crown at the age of 56 meant that he was worthy of being called a genius. "Senior, may I ask how old you are?" Chen Xishuan suddenly asked. The fatty chuckled and said, "Of course, but little girl, would you like to take off your veil? I, Zhou Xiaoxiao, have only 2 hobbies in my life. One is money and the other is beautiful women. Although I can't see your face right now, based on my many years of experience with women, you must have a stunning appearance. Let me admire it." Chen Xishuan glanced at Ji Dong, then took off her veil. The moment she took off her veil, Zhou Xiaoxiao's smiling eyes widened. His mouth was wide open as he fell into a daze. Seeing his exaggerated expression, Ji Dong couldn't help but find it funny. This was also a supreme expert, but why was his resistance to beautiful women so low? He was no different from a pervert. At the same time, he was secretly vigilant. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao knew his grandmaster, if he took a fancy to Chen Xishuan, it would not be easy for him to take her away safely. Why? Zhou Xiaoxiao suddenly pulled on his hair as if he had gone crazy. He let out a long sigh and said, "If I had been born 50 years earlier, I would have fought with Ji Dong no matter what. Perfect, this is true perfection. Originally, I thought they were exaggerating. After all, I am at the level of the 1,000 killer and have seen countless beauties, but compared to you, even 10 times more is just the light of a firefly. You must be the Eastern Wood Holy Maiden of the Eastern Wood Empire. Other than the Eastern Wood Holy Maiden, I can't think of anyone else who could have such a perfect appearance. What a loss, what a loss. Why was I born 50 years earlier?" Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan were speechless when they saw Zhou Xiaoxiao's drooling expression. Was this a supreme expert who could break through to the 9 crowns at the age of 56? Junior is Chen Xishuan. Senior, you haven't answered my question. Zhou Xiaoxiao put on a long face and squeezed the fat on his face with both hands. I'm already 78 years old. God, why do you do this to me? You don't let me have it, but you let me see it. It's so depressing. Ji Dong, Fatty is very jealous now. You have to be careful, I won't show mercy. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist, and a stick of incense flew far away. It stuck straight into a big tree at the side of the field. The tip of the incense was lit in an instant, and a wisp of smoke rose in spirals. At the same time the incense flew out, Zhou Xiaoxiao's aura suddenly changed. A moment ago, he was still a fatty with an insatiable appetite, but in the next moment, he was filled with a tyrannical domineering aura. An earth-shattering and terrifying magic power instantly rose, and an incomparably sharp aura surged towards Ji Dong. Ji Dong's actual combat experience was so rich that when the incense flew out, he also reacted. Unlike Zhou Xiaoxiao's full release of pressure, Ji Dong did not release any magic fluctuations, and his whole body had already moved in the first place. Chen Xishuan's reaction was not slow at all. She turned her body and grabbed Ji Dong's shoulder with her left hand. With a wonderful turn of her delicate body, she was already attached to Ji Dong's back. The 6 crown Zimu magic was fully released and injected into Ji Dong's body. At the same time, her hands were around Ji Dong's neck, and her slender thighs were once again wrapped around his waist, so that they were closely connected to his body and as much as possible not to affect his movements. With Chen Xishuan's current strength, if she wanted to help Ji Dong, she could only rely on this method. Close to the body, with the dual enhancement of soul fusion and magic assistance, Ji Dong's own strength was greatly enhanced. However, such contact was extremely satisfying for Chen Xishuan, but for Ji Dong it was a great test. Every time he came into physical contact with Chen Xishuan like this, coupled with the wonderful pleasure of soul fusion, it would lower his guard a little. This was also what Ji Dong was most afraid of seeing. But in this situation, without Chen Xishuan's assistance, Ji Dong was not sure that he could withstand Zhou Xiaoxiao for the time it takes for an incense to burn. In terms of level calculation, a 9-crown demon master should be similar to a 10th-grade mythological beast, but in fact, even a totem mythological beast was unlikely to be an opponent of a 9-crown demon master. How could the wisdom of humans, magic, and the application of magic skills be comparable to that of magical beasts? Previously, Chen Xishuan had not asked Zhou Xiaoxiao's age for no reason. He had broken through to 9-crown at the age of 56, and was 78 this year. In 22 years, how many levels could he break through? In any aspect, this fatty was more dangerous than the 3-legged golden crow. Ji Dong had already flown out at the same time that Chen Xishuan's body was close to his. His huge wings spread out from under Chen Xishuan's ribs. After absorbing the crystal core of the 3-legged golden crow, his wings had already recovered, but it would still take a long time for the sacred king of Godfire armor to fuse again. After all, the sacred king of Godfire armor had been badly damaged when the 3-legged golden crow was dying, not to mention that Ji Dong now did not have the assistance of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Other people's magical beasts could be directly summoned through a contract, but because of the bloodline connection between Ji Dong and the sacred evolution fire dragon, he did not have any contract with it, and he had never thought of restricting the sacred evolution fire dragon. Therefore, after his spirit recovered, he was unable to contact the sacred evolution fire dragon. His figure flashed, and Ji Dong's magic increased in all aspects. He directly pounced towards Zhou Xiaoxiao. Above his head, 6 black and white yin-yang crowns shone, and on his hands, extreme yang fire and extreme yin fire lit up. Yes, 6 crowns. What appeared in front of Zhou Xiaoxiao's eyes was 6 level 67 yin-yang crowns, not level 71. How could he not use some tricks when facing a cardinal? Using the divine yin-yang lock technique, Ji Dong concealed the fact that his magic had broken through to 7 crowns. Although he had been able to defeat the 3-legged golden crow because of Chen Xishuan's powerful assistance, if the 3-legged golden crow had not underestimated Ji Dong in the beginning, he would not have been killed in the end. Seeing that Ji Dong was rushing towards him, Zhou Xiaoxiao could not help but frown. Although the ultimate dual fire gave him a new feeling, Ji Dong's attack looked very ordinary. Although he did not reveal any flaws, the difference in magic between the two of them was huge. What was the point of such an ordinary attack? As he thought about it, Zhou Xiaoxiao had already made his move. He raised his right hand and lightly pointed in the air. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light bloomed and condensed into a 3-meter-long giant sword in the air. It went straight for Ji Dong, and his left hand was already naturally behind his back. In his eyes, only one hand was enough to deal with Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan. At this moment, Ji Dong's attack suddenly changed. His body swayed slightly, and in an instant, his speed had more than doubled. One Ji Dong instantly became four, and they rushed in four different directions at the same time. Some went straight for Zhou Xiaoxiao, some went to the side, and some flew into the air. The four figures scattered like goddesses scattering flowers. At the same time, the strong ultimate dual fire magic exploded. The difference between a 9-crown magician and an 8-crown magician was not only the total amount of magic, but also the change in the nature of the attributes. When Ji Dong was 6-crown magician, his ultimate magic could suppress the attributes of an 8-crown magician. However, even if he was 9-crown magician, he could not have the same effect on a 9-crown magician. Why? It was because a 9-crown magician already had ultimate magic. Therefore, even if dozens of 8-crown magicians surrounded a 9-crown magician, it would be difficult for them to win. The difference between an 8-crown magician and a 9-crown magician was like heaven and earth. The sudden change in Ji Dong's attack made Zhou Xiaoxiao's eyes light up, but he still only raised his right hand. His chubby palm moved slightly, and in an instant, the 3-meter-long golden sword had already transformed into thousands of sword shadows in the air. No matter which direction Ji Dong attacked from with the mistaken shadow doppelganger, it was completely blocked. There was no chance at all. It was better to break the enemy a little than to attack thousands of enemies. Zhou Xiaoxiao's reaction could not be said to be slow, but he did not have any intention to kill Ji Dong. At this time, he was only testing Ji Dong's strength. Therefore, his seemingly offensive skill was only a passive defense, and Ji Dong was looking for this opportunity. Showing weakness to the enemy, looking for an opportunity, and then using the unique explosive power of a fire magician. This was also Ji Dong's usual method when facing a strong enemy. If he could not obtain a decisive advantage in one strike, then it was very likely that he would face the result of defeat. At this moment, incomparably sharp killing intent burst forth. At the same time, both of Ji Dong's eyes became dazzling silver, and a tangible soul light shot out from his eyes. In an instant, the soul vortex seemed to be pressurized, and its speed increased to the limit. It should be known that this was a fusion of the enormous soul power of both Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan. The other three figures instantly disappeared, leaving only Ji Dong flying in the sky. At this time, it was evening, and the sun and moon were rotating in the sky. At this moment, a golden sun and a dark moon simultaneously lit up behind Ji Dong. Accompanied by the full release of his soul power, the sky seemed to have already become his domain. The multicolored clouds in the sky disappeared, and a strange scene of half-light and half-darkness appeared in the sky. A black moonlight and a golden sunlight descended from the sky at the same time, instantly shining on Ji Dong's body. In the next moment, his entire body had already shot out, like a bolt of black and gold lightning diving down from the sky. In an instant, the yin-yang crown above Ji Dong's head had already returned to the 7 crowns. 7 dragons, 7 snakes, a total of 14 sure-kill skills flew out from the crowns and fiercely collided with the sword formation that Fatty had conjured. At the beginning of the fight, Ji Dong did not even think about holding on for the time it took for a joss stick to burn. As a magician, especially one who had inherited the ultimate dual fire of Aowen, the King of Kings, if he was only thinking about how to last for the duration of his opponent's attack, then he would undoubtedly lose. In Ji Dong's heart there was only one thought, and that was to defeat his opponent and obtain victory. No matter how strong his opponent was, this would never change. Ji Dong's eyes were already filled with a bloodthirsty light. At the same time that the power of the dragons and snakes in the continuation matrix collided with Zhou Xiaoxiao's sword formation, his entire body had already turned pitch black. The understanding of the grand serenity flame ice allowed him to have a further understanding of the dark flame Devil King's skills. At this moment, he was like an elegant and bloodthirsty ice arrow that instantly drilled into that huge roar of mana. Zhou Xiaoxiao's expression changed. He had indeed made the same mistake as the three-legged golden crow. He had underestimated Ji Dong. When the power of the 7 dragons and snakes heavily collided with the sword formation that his golden sword had conjured, he had no choice but to fully gather his mana to resist. The mana that Ji Dong had stored was equivalent to the power of 2 of him. That was the ultimate dual fire, and it also had the effect of the yin and yang combination. The instantaneous explosive attack power was absolutely astonishing, and even Zhou Xiaoxiao could not take it lightly. Amidst the violent roar, the entire space was filled with manic mana fluctuations, and in the next moment, a dense chill had already descended on Zhou Xiaoxiao's body. There was only one purpose for Ji Dong to use his trump card right from the start, and that was to tear apart Zhou Xiaoxiao's defense and restrain his power. There was no doubt that Ji Dong had achieved his goal, and his opportunity to attack had arrived in the next moment. The golden sun in the sky had completely disappeared, and all that was left was a dark moon. And in that deep black of Ji Dong's body, there was actually an additional touch of purple. It was a noble purple, and the black flames that were burning on his hands also carried that noble purple. In the next moment, he had already closed in on Zhou Xiaoxiao, and his right claw was swung towards Zhou Xiaoxiao's chest. Zhou Xiaoxiao flipped his right wrist and raised his palm to block. In the next moment, he had already seen Ji Dong's bloodthirsty eyes, and 2 cold bolts of silver light pierced into his eyes. He only felt his mind sink, and his hands naturally stiffened. At this moment, an overwhelming attack had already erupted. Forbidden 100,000 Dark Annihilation Kiss. Yes, this was another ultimate skill of the Dark Flame Devil King. It was a powerful skill that Ji Dong had comprehended after using a super ultimate skill, Great Serenity Ice of Flame. It was a top-notch ultimate skill, and was also a single target attack, but the attack of Dark Annihilation Kiss had 360 layers, which was equivalent to 360 Dark Moon Claws exploding at the same time. Chapter 365. Forbidden 100,000 Kiss of Annihilation sounded like a sure-kill skill, but there was a reason why Ji Dong chose it as his attack. Kiss of Annihilation was a combo of 360 Dark Moon Claws. Its specialty was that no matter how many claws you could block, as long as you couldn't block a single claw in the process of 360 claws, then all the following claw attacks would fall on you because of the paralysis effect of the Dark Moon Claws. Especially after using Forbidden 100,000 Kiss of Annihilation, the paralysis effect of the Dark Moon Claws would be doubled, and the corrosion effect would be tripled. Under such circumstances, the attack power of Kiss of Annihilation itself had reached an extremely terrifying level. This was the attack effect bonus of close-range attack skills. However, don't forget that Ji Dong still had an extremely overbearing skill, and that was Deity Strike. If Kiss of Annihilation was used alone, its power would definitely be above Ice of Flames, but it still couldn't compare to the super sure-kill skill Ice of Flames. However, what if Ji Dong's Kiss of Annihilation was used as a Deity Strike? 360 Dark Moon Claws was equivalent to 360 Deity Strike. When such attacks were really superimposed, once they all hit, perhaps even a single target intermediate super sure kill skill couldn't compare, and the mana consumption on Ji Dong's body was much less than that of a single target intermediate super sure kill skill. This was the reason why Ji Dong chose Kiss of Annihilation. Zhou Xiaoxiao was indeed strong, but his body was so huge that he might be relatively lacking in agility. With such a fast attack attacking him, he could at least make him flustered. And this all-out attack of Ji Dong's had just begun. What he was using now was no longer a simple primitive skill of the two-husband monarch, but one of his own creations. I've been tricked. When Ji Dong's body approached, Zhou Xiaoxiao found that he had been tricked. The Ji Dong in front of him was like a different person from the previous orthodox attack. The tyrannical attack that burst out in that instant shocked even him. As it turned out, Supreme Being experts were not existences with an undeserved reputation. Zhou Xiaoxiao's speed was not restricted by his body at all. On the contrary, his seemingly fat body was extremely agile, and the flexibility of every joint could even be compared to that of Ji Dong, who had cultivated the flying serpent strength transformation technique. His right hand flew up and down, blocking high and low, forcibly blocking Ji Dong's forbidden 100,000 and kiss of annihilation. But what made him depressed was that although he had blocked Ji Dong's attack, he felt as if he had nowhere to use his strength. Kiss of Annihilation's speed was too fast. Every claw attack was just a touch away. Even with Zhou Xiaoxiao's reaction speed, he was still only able to block it. He was unable to rely on his mana, which was far superior to Ji Dong's. Furthermore, Ji Dong's Kiss of Annihilation was in the form of a deity strike. Every attack was extremely condensed, and the mana would only explode after entering Zhou Xiaoxiao's body. Loud explosions continuously erupted from the core of the collision between the two. To outsiders, it seemed like they were evenly matched, but in reality, Zhou Xiaoxiao was at a disadvantage. This was because the place where the mana exploded was in his palm. The deity strike's powerful penetrative ability was only released when it penetrated his mana. 1 or 2 strikes were nothing, but when it came to 360 consecutive strikes, even he was finding it difficult to endure. Zhou Xiaoxiao's right palm was being corroded by the ultimate Yin fire. Coupled with the continuous explosions of the deity strike, his right hand was gradually becoming numb. When he blocked 200 strikes, he had no choice but to use his left hand, which he had hidden behind his back, to block the attacks. As a top-notch sure-kill technique, Dark Kiss of Annihilation's unique characteristic was that once the first strike was released, the 360 strikes would be completed in one go. Moreover, the opponent would not be able to directly counterattack during the attack. No matter how strong the opponent was, as long as they met Dark Kiss of Annihilation, they would only be able to counterattack after blocking all 360 strikes. The 360 claws were finally released. According to the original characteristics of Dark Kiss of Annihilation, the last claw should have grabbed the opponent's chest and pulled the opponent closer. Then, it would use its head to slam the opponent and release all the accumulated ultimate Yin fire. However, the premise of this was that the opponent could not block all 360 attacks. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao was in a passive position and was tricked by Ji Dong, he still managed to block it with his tyrannical strength. Therefore, there was a change in Ji Dong's final attack. Instead of grabbing the opponent, it was a flat slap. In an instant, his right hand, which was originally burning with black flames, suddenly turned red. It was extremely eye-catching, and it was a red that was filled with endless killing intent. Damn, what a ruthless kid! Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked, but his reaction speed was extremely fast. He clenched his hands into fists and punched at Ji Dong's right hand at the same time. Amidst the loud bang, Ji Dong's body flipped backward with Chen Sichuan. At this moment, 10 huge logs came from behind them in a row and hit Chen Sichuan's back. The 10 logs exploded at the same time, but it also stopped the two's momentum. At this crucial moment, Chen Sichuan and Ji Dong's tacit cooperation showed once again. It was Chen Sichuan who used her Yiwood magic to pull the trees at the side of the field to dissolve the momentum, causing Ji Dong, who should have been blown dozens of meters away, to stop after tumbling for 3 meters. Zhou Xiaoxiao did not have it easy either. Ji Dong's last palm contained the power of the Fire God's sword. Although it could not really bring out the full effect of the Fire God's sword, the palm that contained the Killing God Shupna's powerful killing intent and the power of the Fire God's true fire still made his blood boil. He had to gather his magic to deal with it. But Ji Dong's attack did not stop there. The 6-crown Yin crown on Chen Sichuan's head instantly lit up, and the dim armor of eternity swept up, protecting her and Ji Dong's body for the second time. Although this divine artifact had lost its original luster, it was still a divine artifact. Even the full blow of the three-legged golden crow could not damage it. At this time, Chen Sichuan did not need to borrow the power of the divine artifact, but the transformation effect of the armor of eternity. Her E-Wood magic was instantly transformed into the ultimate E-Wood, and the assistance to Ji Dong immediately had a qualitative change. The impact of the 9-crown Een crown was too strong. Ji Dong should not have been able to gather it in one breath and needed to retreat to gather his magic again. However, the ultimate E-Wood magic was like a new force, and his ultimate Yang fire was immediately ignited. The E-Wood gave birth to the Ding fire, which was the Een-Wood gave birth to the Een fire. In an instant, Ji Dong's right hand turned black again. Every time the moon thinks of me, forbidden, 100,000, silent flame ice. In the midst of the roar, the elegant, silent black ice had already appeared. The air instantly became cold, and the dark moon behind Ji Dong became exceptionally bright. It turned out that Zhou Xiaoxiao had not only underestimated Ji Dong, but he had also underestimated Chen Sichuan. The reason why he thought Ji Dong's power was not outstanding was related to his misjudgment of Chen Sichuan. In his view, although Wood gave birth to fire in the 5 elements, the ordinary E-Wood magic was of limited help to the ultimate twin flames. If Ji Dong carried Chen Sichuan, it would instead be a hindrance to himself. If he was not careful, it would affect his performance. The huge spiritual power produced by the simple soul fusion was not enough to have a spiritual suppression effect on him. It was only at this moment that Zhou Xiaoxiao realized how wrong he was. Chen Sichuan's assistance to Ji Dong was not as simple as it seemed on the soul level. The E-Wood's assistance to the ultimate twin flames was nothing to him, but when the E-Wood was replaced with the ultimate E-Wood, the result was completely different. As a supreme expert, Zhou Xiaoxiao also needed a short period of time to recover after receiving Ji Dong's forbidden 100,000 and dark death kiss. At most, he only needed 1 or 2 seconds to instantly counterattack and defeat Ji Dong. However, in this 1 or 2 seconds, the ice of silent flame had already arrived. He could only block it. Facing the ice of silent flame that was close to the ground, Zhou Xiaoxiao had no choice but to lift his left foot and directly step on it. His own extreme gung metal magic was not able to recover and was released again. As the Dark Flame Devil King's ultimate skill, the characteristics of the ice of silent flame were attachment, devouring, and corrosion. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao's strength was strong, he was unable to fully mobilize his magic power at this time. As the saying goes, carelessness leads to failure. His whole body was suddenly dyed black, and he was successfully condensed into an ice sculpture. Of course, Ji Dong's ice of silent flame could not seal him for long. However, for an expert like Ji Dong, even if it was only for a moment, it could change the outcome. Ji Dong took a deep breath, and the black of his whole body instantly changed to gold. With the powerful conversion ability of the Chaos Bead, he had already gathered all his magic power with this breath. He took a step forward and his body rushed towards Zhou Xiaoxiao. At the same time, he swung his right fist, and his whole body had turned into a dazzling gold. In front of his chest and behind him, there was a golden sun-like brilliance bursting out. Forbidden 100,000 kings devour. If the kiss of silent destruction was the claw of the endless dark moon, then the king's devour was the endless devour of the sun. It was almost the same attack method as the kiss of silent destruction, but the flame monarch's ultimate skill was replaced by the 360 scorching sun devour. Ji Dong's completely golden fist, with endless phantoms, went straight to the Song Mian Zhou Xiaoxiao. This was not as simple as the flame monarch's ultimate skill. It was not even because of the effect of the exterminating strike that gathered all of Ji Dong's attack power. Most importantly, Zhou Xiaoxiao's body was currently trapped in the ice of silent flame. The brilliant sun all and the serene flame ice had allowed Jidong to possess his first ultimate technique, the sun-moon yin-yang world. Then, if the brilliant sun all was replaced with the monarch's devour, it would also be the fiery monarch's ultimate technique. The power produced by the ultimate combination of yin and yang dual flames would not be any weaker than the sun-moon yin-yang world. In addition to the effect of the deity exterminating strike, if it really hit Zhou Xiaoxiao's body, even if he was a sovereign expert, he would definitely not be able to withstand it. This was Jidong's final trump card, an all-out explosion. After releasing this final attack, Jidong immediately felt his entire body feel comfortable. Although he had not yet defeated his opponent, the circulation of his magic power and the release of 3 ultimate skills in succession was an unprecedented feeling of carefreeness. Under normal circumstances, with the strength of his current magic power, it would not be difficult to complete these 3 ultimate skills. However, it was a different situation in actual combat. How could an opponent worthy of him making such a move be ordinary? How could they allow him to release such a powerful attack? Therefore, Chen Xishuan played a crucial role. With the fusion of their souls, the amount of soul power that Jidong could control was even greater than Zhou Xiaoxiao's. This allowed him to not be affected by the other party, allowing him to have a more precise grasp of every change in magic power. This allowed him to choose the timing of his attacks and the ratio of his magic power to reach an extremely precise level. In the beginning, Chen Xishuan only used her Yi-Wood demonic power to assist Jidong. Although it could increase Jidong's power to a certain extent, it was just as Zhou Xiaoxiao had imagined. The increase in her Yi-Wood demonic power was not enough to play a decisive role in the ultimate dual fire. However, at the critical moment, Chen Xishuan did not need Jidong's guidance at all. She was able to make a move at the most appropriate time to stop the two from being sent flying and buy as much time as possible for Jidong. At the same time, she transformed the Yi-Wood magic power into the ultimate Yi-Wood and injected it into Jidong's body. The enhancement effect soared. Not only did it support Jidong to be able to release powerful ultimate skills faster, it also brought Zhou Xiaoxiao a huge surprise. Thus, she became a variable in the battle and changed the situation in an instant. This kind of cooperation, which no longer required verbal communication, was extremely wonderful for any magician. This kind of tacit understanding was something that Jidong had never imagined. Although he rejected Chen Xishuan from the bottom of his heart, hoping that she would stay away from him and not fall into the whirlpool of emotions, this kind of tacit cooperation in battle made him feel extremely comfortable. With such a partner to cooperate with, his strength was not as simple as a simple enhancement. Without Chen Xishuan, Jidong would not have been able to kill the 3-legged golden crow. Without Chen Xishuan, he would not have been able to complete all of his plans for the battle. Zhou Xiaoxiao, who was in front of him, was much stronger than he had imagined. The feeling of Chen Xishuan silently contributing to him behind his back was the most touching. Even though Jidong's heart was as hard as iron, he could not help but feel a little softened. Just as Jidong was about to unleash his king's devour with all his strength and get ready to win with one strike, something strange happened. With a soft ding, the black crystal that covered Zhou Xiaoxiao's body instantly exploded. Right before Jidong's king's devour arrived, it broke open. A stable, milky white hand appeared out of nowhere. It clenched into a fist and punched towards Jidong's king's devour. The 360 strikes of the king's devour merged into one in an instant. The tyrannical attack power exploded perfectly. Compared to the corrosion of the dark moon claw, the scorching sun devour did not have any restrictive effects. However, it had the strength that the dark moon claw could not compare to. It completely subdued its opponent with its strength. Furthermore, it had the effect of the god-slaying strike. Its power was already at its peak. Chapter 366. Even if the Flame Tyrant King was resurrected, he would not be able to do better than Jidong with just this one sure kill skill, King's Devour. But even so, when Ji Dong's 360 devour of the Sun and King's devour all landed on that milky white hand, it was like a dragonfly trying to shake a stone pillar. There was no effect at all. The milky white fist that had a metallic luster withstood all the attacks without any change. When Ji Dong's attacks ended, it brought with it a vast and gentle power that engulfed Ji Dong's body and sent him flying far away. Ji Dong only felt the mana in his chest fluctuate violently. While he was shocked, the chaos bead in his chest had already started to throb violently. A strong aura of chaos actually engulfed his body in an instant. Although the gentle milky white flame was not strong, it turned into a layer of light that appeared on the outer layer of Qin Sichuan's eternal armor. The eternal armor trembled slightly, as if it was groaning, and the huge force that was pushing Ji Dong and Qin Sichuan away from the outside world quietly melted at the next moment, as if something had been blocked. Ji Dong flipped in the air. When his feet landed on the ground, he took 7 to 8 steps back before he could barely stabilize himself. He and Qin Sichuan shouted almost at the same time, "Chaos Gold." That's right. Just when Ji Dong thought that Zhou Xiaoxiao would not be able to block his attack, just when he was filled with a strong will to fight, just when he was about to defeat his opponent, he was forced back. All his previous efforts, including Qin Sichuan's marvelous support, had not been able to achieve the desired effect. All of this was because of that huge milky white hand. It was precisely that hand that had destroyed Ji Dong's meticulous plan to successfully hit Zhou Xiaoxiao's ice of flames, preventing the yin and yang dual flames from fusing together. It was also precisely that hand that had easily blocked Ji Dong's flame sovereign's devour. There was only one explanation for the milky white color on that huge hand, and that was chaos. The power of chaos had reversed the situation at the most crucial moment. Although Ji Dong already had the chaos bead, he was not proficient in the application of chaos in actual combat. It was not because he could not use the power of the chaos bead, but because the power of chaos was about creation and not destruction. It was not very effective when used in attacks. Another reason was his ultimate dual flames. It was precisely because of the existence of the chaos bead that he could rotate yin and yang without any gaps, and there was no danger of mana imbalance. Therefore, most of the time, the chaos bead played a core role and was used to condense, convert, and mobilize mana. At this moment, under the stimulation of the chaos gold, the chaos fire in the chaos bead appeared on its own to protect Ji Dong's body and neutralize the impact of the chaos bead. The joint attack of Ji Dong and Qin Sichuan was finally neutralized, but Zhou Xiaoxiao did not look relaxed at all. The white robe on his body had turned black in many places. It was obvious that the material of the robe was not ordinary. It did not melt even under the strong corrosion of the ice of the flames of the fire. However, his face and hands had obvious traces of corrosion, especially on his right hand where the chaos gold demonic power retracted. It had completely turned black. Waves of golden demonic power of the gung metal kept attacking it, and it barely dispersed the ultimate yin fire that had invaded it. Zhou Xiaoxiao's small eyes widened as he looked at Ji Dong. Ji Dong had already raised his right hand slowly, and his entire hand had turned a rich red. In the previous battle, Ji Dong had fully experienced Zhou Xiaoxiao's strength. After his all-out attack was neutralized, he was at an absolute disadvantage. Zhou Xiaoxiao was now his opponent, and whether this battle was a test or not, Ji Dong would not be careless. He was already prepared to release the fire god's sword and go all out. With his soul fusion with Qin Sichuan, it was not very difficult to suppress the consciousness of the god of slaughter, sharpness. He was not completely powerless now. "Let's not fight anymore, let's not fight anymore." Zhou Xiaoxiao waved his hand at Ji Dong and Qin Sichuan with a dejected expression, and the mana on his body quietly dissipated. "Ji Dong brat, you're too cunning. You actually tricked me. If it wasn't for my many life-saving abilities, I'm afraid I would have lost a layer of skin just now." I have to admit that you are indeed more talented than me. When I was in my 20s, I definitely did not have the strength you have now. However, you also have a good wife. If it wasn't for her sudden attack, it would not have been easy for you to force out my primal chaos gold. In this battle, Zhou Xiaoxiao had miscalculated the strength of Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan. This was a huge mistake in a real battle. If it wasn't for the fact that he was much stronger than the two of them, he would have already suffered a great loss. Hearing his words, Chen Sichuan's pretty face blushed, and her impression of this fatty immediately increased. However, Ji Dong frowned and said, "She's not my wife, she's my student." As he spoke, the energy of the Vulcan's sword gradually returned to his body, and he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Zhou Xiaoxiao's strength was more tyrannical than he had imagined. Even when the opponent looked down on him, he still could not gain the upper hand. Moreover, it should not be forgotten that Zhou Xiaoxiao did not use any magical weapons or mounts in this battle. Moreover, he was only probing at the start. If he had gone all out from the start, then Ji Dong was afraid that he would not have stood a chance at all. This was the absolute difference in strength. Previously, he clearly saw that the Gung Jin Sun crown on Zhou Xiaoxiao's head had 9 crowns and 3 stars, which was a terrifying strength of level 96. Among the supreme experts that he knew, only his grandmaster Yin Chaoyang could compare to him. Even the Xian ancestor Big Dipper Ji Chongxin was probably inferior to this fatty. It was no wonder that the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce's position in the continent was so stable. Even with such a huge amount of assets, no one dared to rashly think about it. This fatty gave Ji Dong the feeling that he was unfathomable. He could not judge what would happen if this fatty fully displayed his strength. Wow, it's a teacher-student relationship. I like this. It seems that I also have to consider opening a magic academy. The fatty's complexion had already returned to normal. The ultimate Yin fire that had invaded his body had been forced out by his ultimate Gung Jin. There was another reason why he was at a disadvantage, and that was because of the elemental restraints. Among the 5 elements, fire restrained metal. In this battle, he was at a disadvantage. However, just as Ji Dong had imagined, if the fatty fully displayed his strength, it would be truly terrifying. Never forget his other identity, the foolish rich boss of the world's #1 Chamber of Commerce. With such a strong financial strength, how powerful would his magical weapons be? Ji Dong turned his head to look at the incense not far away and said, "The incense is only half burned. If you go all out, I won't be able to last the time it takes for an incense to burn. I lose." Although he was unwilling to admit it, Ji Dong was not a person who would go back on his word. Judging from the situation, he had indeed lost. The fatty shook his head and said, "No, you didn't lose. What I didn't say just now is that as long as you can last for the time it takes for an incense to burn, you win. Kid, don't be unconvinced. Don't forget that I'm a master of 9 crowns. Your ultimate magical power is much inferior to mine. Without the attribute suppression, it's almost impossible for you to challenge me at a higher level. What you've done is already much better than I imagined. You've perfectly demonstrated the explosive power of the fire element. You don't need to say much. I believe that if you were given another 10 years, you would definitely shock the world. At that time, perhaps no one on this continent would be your opponent. Moreover, you didn't summon your magical beast companion just now. I've heard that you have a powerful dragon beast that can also use ultimate dual flames. If you add it, it's not impossible for you to withstand my all-out attack for the time it takes for an incense to burn. How shameful! Not only did you use your hands, you even used your trump card, the primal chaos gold. Kid, you've just won 7 crowns, that's enough for you to be proud. The one who's shameful is me. My pitiful ice silk robe has been burned by you. I'll have to spend at least several thousand gold coins to repair it. Do you know that making me spend money is the same as cutting off my flesh? Looking at Fatty's sorrowful face, Ji Dong found it hard to imagine that this person in front of him was a peak existence in the world of magicians. Moreover, he was an expert with the power of chaos. This kind of heartache towards money was similar to Yao Qianshu's in the past. "Senior, you can't be a miser, right?" Chen Sichuan asked straightforwardly. Fatty scratched the fat on the back of his head and said, "Of course not. How could someone as generous as me be a miser? Alright, Jidong brat, you've already passed my test. Tell me, how do you want me to help you?" Big brother Yin Chaoyang only said that he wanted me to help you, but he didn't say what he wanted me to do. He said that everything is up to you. Your talent has already shown me that you have the qualifications to receive my help. Of course, my help also has conditions. Fatty, I am a merchant. Ji Dong lightly said, "What are your conditions?" Fatty laughed and said, "Brat, I'm starting to like you more and more. You didn't ask for anything, but instead asked for conditions. This proves that you're not a person who would go back on your word. It seems that you're just like big brother Yin Chaoyang, a man of his word. Then I'll say it directly. My request is very simple. It won't be difficult for you at all. Do you see the clothes I'm wearing? I'll make a few for you later. No matter what, you must wear them. That's my condition." Chen Sichuan was shocked. That simple? Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't understand why Fatty would propose such a seemingly meaningless condition. Fatty laughed. "It's simple. I'm a kind and honest person. Naturally, I won't make things difficult for you, brat Ji Dong." Ji Dong indifferently smiled. "But you're also an outstanding merchant. The reason you want to do this is very simple. It's just an advertisement. You want me to advertise your idiotically rich business all the time, right?" "Advertisement? What's an advertisement?" Fatty was stunned for a moment. Ji Dong said, "An advertisement means to advertise widely. If I wear the clothes with the logo of your idiotically rich business, everyone will know that I have something to do with your idiotically rich business. Especially when we face the dark enemies of the 5 elements continent in the future, those who are with me will be the strongest in the world. They will naturally notice my clothes. I'm a member of the Heavenly STEM Saints. The effect of this advertisement will undoubtedly be very useful to the idiotically rich business. The stronger I am in the future, the more useful I will be in the holy war between the 2 continents. Naturally, the effect of this advertisement will be better. Only by staying alive and working hard for this holy war will I be able to get your continuous help. Thus, it will be better for the idiotically rich business to advertise. Am I right?" After hearing Ji Dong's words, Zhou Xiaoxiao was even more surprised than when he was defeated by Ji Dong. All of a sudden, he took a step forward and appeared in front of Ji Dong. Even with Ji Dong's reaction speed, he couldn't dodge that pair of fat hands. His right hand was already grabbed by Zhou Xiaoxiao. Of course, this was also because Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't have any intention to attack, so Ji Dong's soul search didn't have any reaction. What a talent! Zhou Xiaoxiao shook Ji Dong's hand forcefully and said, "I've searched for him for thousands of times, but when I look back, he's in the dim light. Ji Dong, boy, I've been looking for you for a long time. I'm sure that you're the one I've been looking for. This is great, this is really great. I didn't expect that you're not only a genius in devil cultivation, but also a genius in business management. I seem to see my younger self again. Oh no, you're even more outstanding than I was back then. I've decided, from now on, I'll train you to be my future successor. Heaven rewards those who wait. I've finally found you." Ji Dong forcefully pulled his hand back. Looking at the somewhat strange Fatty, he said, "Senior, can you be more normal? I'm starting to doubt whether it was right for Grandmaster to ask you to find me." Oh. It's just that I'm very excited right now. Do you know what it means for me to find you? It means freedom. Do you think I'm willing to be the boss of a stupid and rich chamber of commerce? It's very tough, extremely tough. Damn it, now that I think about it, I'm still very depressed. If I hadn't lost to that old ghost, would I have been trapped here for so many years? Looking at Ji Dong's puzzled expression, Zhou Xiaoxiao's expression suddenly became serious. She said righteously, Ji Dong, do you know why our foolish rich Chamber of Commerce has been able to stand tall on the continent for 500 years without collapsing? Do you know why we've accumulated so much wealth that even the great empires are afraid of us? It's not because we have any special business model, nor is it because the Chamber of Commerce has produced many great business geniuses. It's because of time. Chapter 367. Time? Why? Chen Xishuan asked curiously. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, in our 5 elements continent, apart from our foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce, the longest operating Chamber of Commerce is only 80 years old. However, we have 500 years of accumulation. Even if our management is not the best, as long as our goal is right and there are no major mistakes in our management methods, we can accumulate a lot of wealth in 500 years. And the secret to ensuring that the Chamber of Commerce will not be destroyed lies in strength, formidable strength. The first rule of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce is that the president must be a supreme expert. Only a supreme expert is qualified to become the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, the president is not hereditary. The foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce does not belong to any family, but is jointly decided by the Council of the Chamber of Commerce. Among them, the president has the greatest decision-making power, but not all. Each president is nominated by the previous president and decided by the Council of the Chamber of Commerce. In this way, the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce can always have at least one supreme expert. Once the candidate for the president is decided, the entire financial resources of the chamber will fully support him. Why do you think I was able to break through the 9 crowns at the age of 56? It's not only because of my talent, but also because of the full support of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. In terms of talent, I'm not even as good as brother Yin Zhaoyang. However, he took decades to comprehend the flame of chaos, while I only took 5 years. Because in these 5 years, I used a total of 10 pieces of jade of heaven to comprehend the flame of chaos. Who else can do this? Hearing this, Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan couldn't help but be shocked. 10 pieces of jade of heaven, what kind of concept was that? Perhaps even the royal families of the 5 great empires couldn't afford it. The jade of heaven could no longer be measured by its value. One person absorbed 10 pieces of jade of heaven. How extravagant was that? No wonder Zhou Xiaoxiao could have the powerful strength of level 96 and the gold of chaos at the age of 78, even though she was not a heavenly stemmed saint. However, the surprise that Zhou Xiaoxiao brought them was just beginning. Zhou Xiaoxiao continued, isn't the divine weapon powerful? I can see that both of you have divine weapons. Dongmu Saintess, Princess Xian, your divine weapon should be the only one in your Dongmu Empire, and also the best one in the 5 great empires. The armor of the Goddess of Life should be called the Armor of Eternity, right? As for Ji Dong's divine weapon, I don't know, but since you didn't release it just now, I can tell that you haven't fully grasped its power. However, our foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce has 3 divine weapons, which are controlled by successive presidents. I can tell you frankly that in terms of comprehensive strength, brother Yin Zhaoyang is slightly inferior to me. I may not be able to defeat him with my strength, but I can win with the wealth of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, in my opinion, money is omnipotent. 3 divine weapons. Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan looked at each other. Ji Dong said indifferently, what you're telling us isn't as simple as showing off your wealth. Zhou Xiaoxiao chuckled, of course. Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, of course we're both smart people, so I won't beat around the bush. The reason why I'm telling you this is very simple. You can have everything I have. As long as you agree, I can immediately confirm you as my successor. Once you pass the Elder's test, then the entire foolish rich Chamber of Commerce will be your solid backing. From now on, they will support you with all their wealth. With your talent, in less than 10 years, you will definitely be able to break through to the 9th crown. Chen Sichuan snorted, "That's a good plan. If a saint ruler of the heavenly stem saints becomes the president of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce, then for at least the next 100 years, the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce will be like the sun in the sky." Of course, Jidong, you can choose not to agree. Even if you don't agree, I will still support you with my wealth. However, the only thing I can use is the power of your advertisement. The amount of support will naturally be different from you becoming the successor of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. You have to think this through. I can tell you this, as long as you agree to become the successor of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce, then I can give you everything you want. Jidong's eyes suddenly lit up. He stared at Zhou Xiaoxiao. "Can you really give me everything I want?" Zhou Xiaoxiao said proudly, "Of course. In this world, there aren't many things that I can't do." Chen Sichuan looked at Jidong in shock. "Teacher Jidong, are you really going to agree to him? Behind the benefits comes the responsibility." Jidong ignored Chen Sichuan and stared at Zhou Xiaoxiao. "All right, as long as you can help me with one thing, not to mention becoming the successor of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce, I'll even work like a horse for you." Hearing him say this, Zhou Xiaoxiao's expression became nervous. He knew very well that for Jidong to say something like this, what he wanted him to do was not simple. He said, "All right, tell me." Jidong said, "I want you to help me resurrect a god." "What?" Zhou Xiaoxiao almost spat out blood. "What do you want me to do? Resurrect a god? Jidong brat, is there something wrong with your head?" Jidong said coldly, "My mind is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Since you already know what happened on the Holy Evil Island, you naturally know what's blocking the path of the 5 Elements continent. The Red Lotus Heavenly Fire Barrier was released by my lover. She is the ruler of the Earth's core, the queen of the Earth's core. Her strength has long reached the god realm that you can't even imagine. However, her existence is not tolerated by the divine realm. After she displayed her power in the human world, she was killed by the divine realm's enforcers. She's forever separated from me. As long as you can resurrect her, I'll do anything." Chen Sichuan didn't say anything. At this moment, there was only gratitude in her heart. She quietly severed the soul fusion between her and Jidong. She was afraid that Jidong would sense something if she couldn't control her emotions. He was such a proud person, but he was willing to give up everything in order to resurrect her. He was willing to do anything for others. Chen Sichuan felt that no matter how much she suffered after changing her identity, it was all worth it. She silently retreated behind Jidong. No matter what decision he made, she wouldn't have any objections. She now understood more and more about human love. She knew that if she really died and could never be resurrected, then although Jidong was still alive, his pain would be much greater than hers. Zhou Xiaoxiao said dejectedly, "I can't do this. It's not something that we humans can do. Brat, you really know how to raise conditions. Do you have a simpler one?" "Yes." To Zhou Xiaoxiao's surprise, Jidong actually nodded and said, "Since the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce has existed for 500 years, then you should have heard that the Bartenders Guild has a famous wine record. This record records the 10 most famous wines in the world. Among the 10, I already have 2, the vast sea nectar and the source of life. If you can help me find the other 8, then I can also agree to your conditions. As long as I'm still alive, I can be your heir." Zhou Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. This seems to be feasible. Although I haven't seen the famous wine record, there are a lot of famous wines in the Chamber of Commerce. There are even 1,000-year-old wine. When I go back, I'll ask the Bartenders Guild what the 10 famous wines are. Then it's settled. Jidong nodded and said, "All right, as long as you help me find them, I'll agree to be your heir. The famous wine record is in my hands, but I don't have it with me right now. When I get it back, I'll go to the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce and ask your people to tell me about it." Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded and smiled. Good, then it's settled. Our Chamber of Commerce's headquarters is in the Western Jin Empire's capital, Jin City. I'm usually there. If you want to transfer tens of millions of dollars of wealth, then you can go there and find me. If you want to transfer ordinary money, then you can do it yourself. Zhou Xiaoxiao threw something over. Ji Dong took it into his hand and looked down to see that it was a token made of an unknown material. The token was purple and round, and was carved into the shape of a gold coin. However, the image on it was of a fat head, which was Zhou Xiaoxiao's appearance. The carving was extremely exquisite, and Zhou Xiaoxiao's appearance was carved very vividly. This is made of meteoric iron. No one can fake it. As long as it's the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce's business, you can use it to spend as much money as you want. As long as the amount isn't too large, there won't be a problem. Since I've seen you, I'll return to Jin City and explain your matter to the council. I believe that those guys will be very interested in you. Perhaps I will come looking for you soon. After you get the famous wines record, inform the people of the Chamber of Commerce to report to me. With the token I gave you, no one will dare to be negligent. After saying goodbye to Zhou Xiaoxiao, Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan left the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. On the way, Ji Dong kept his head down and was lost in thought. Chen Xishuan didn't say anything either. She also kept her head down and was thinking about her own matters. Ji Dong made 2 conditions to Zhou Xiaoxiao. Both of them were related to her. Especially the second condition. Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't understand it, but how could she not understand it? At that time, Ji Dong said that as long as she was alive, he would fulfill his promise. Chen Xishuan knew him too well. His thoughts were clearly on the mainland. After completing the Flaming Bar's wish, he would follow the Flaming Bar. His love was so stubborn, but it was this stubbornness that made Chen Xishuan's heart tremble. For the first time, she felt the urgency of time. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. When she was still at the Flaming Bar, she gave Ji Dong a task of 10 years. She wanted him to use 10 years to fulfill his wish. That was just to dilute his pain with time. But now, it seemed that his love for the Flaming Bar hadn't changed at all. After returning to the college, Chen Xishuan said goodbye and quickly ran back to the dormitory. Although Ji Dong had consumed a lot of energy in the battle with Zhou Xiaoxiao, he promised Zhu Rong that he would see him no matter how late it was. Naturally, he went directly to Zhu Rong's office. The door of Zhu Rong's office was open. Once Ji Dong arrived at the door, he saw his teacher pacing back and forth in the room. "Teacher, I'm back." Ji Dong stood at the door and said respectfully, "Little brat, come on in. It's so late." Zhu Rong Hyoheim waved at him. Once Ji Dong walked into the room, Zhu Rong asked impatiently, "Ji Dong, what's up with the magic formation that your class used today? Tell me." Zhu Rong used to be one of the top 10 directors of the Divine STEM Academy. It could be said that he had devoted his entire life to the study of devil skills and cultivation. Therefore, he knew better than anyone else how great the influence of the magic formation of 5 natural elements released by the Class 1 students was. Ji Dong said, "Teacher, this magic formation is called the magic formation of 5 natural elements. Before the battle of the Holy Evil Island, I had met some people from the Alliance of Devil. They had already made a certain amount of research on the coexistence of 10 natural elements, and were able to release a great power similar to the Yin and Yang world with the power of 10 natural elements. However, this magic formation had an obvious shortcoming, which was that it could only restrict the opponent, and didn't have much practical significance in either attacking or defending. Later on, in the Battle of the Holy Evil Island, we faced powerful dark beings from the land of 5 elements. They had made a step further in this aspect, and were able to fuse the power of 10 natural elements for defense. However, because they couldn't coordinate the power of 10 natural elements, they were weak in attacking and defending, and could only purely suppress and defend. Both of these 2 magic formations had obvious shortcomings. Later on, through my own research and experiments with the Class 1 students, I invented the magic formation that you saw today. Although this magic formation of mine didn't fuse the power of 10 natural elements, it could both attack and defend. Perhaps it's not perfect yet, but judging from the current situation, it should be the best direction for the future. Taking out the 5 natural elements of yang or yin, it would be much easier to fuse them together. At least, this magic formation of mine wouldn't be disturbed by the different influences of yin and yang powers. Through the coexistence of the 5 natural elements, the power of the 5 students would form a cycle, which would allow them to launch an attack from any direction at any time. Chapter 368. Hearing Jidong's words, Zhurong looked at him with a burning gaze, saying, Jidong, do you know what this formation you've invented means? Jidong nodded, saying, It means that a single magician, even if it's an 8-crown magician, can no longer dominate. With this method of mine, 5 6-crown magicians joining hands can defeat an 8-crown magician. Zhurong said, Why 8-crown, not 9-crown? Jidong shook his head. A 9-crown expert already possesses extreme demonic power. This kind of increase is already not something that can be overcome by a simple 5-element symbiosis. Even if it's 5 8-crown magicians who make up this formation, to defeat a 9-crown supreme expert is still unrealistic. Once one's strength reaches 9-crown, they will enter another realm. However, if this formation of mine can be widely used in the demon world, then it will greatly shorten the gap in strength between low and high-level magicians. Even if 5 2-crown magicians join hands, for a short period of time, they can also display the strength of a 5-crown magician. Therefore, the appearance of the 5 elements symbiosis cyclic formation is enough to change the current situation of the demon world. Zhurong said in a low voice, It's good that you know. If this formation is only possessed by my Blazing Academy, then, within a few years, our Blazing Academy can even surpass the Heavenly STEM Academy. If this formation is obtained by any country, then, this country can obtain a decisive and formidable power on the continent. How do you plan to deal with it? Jidong looked at Zhurong with a calm gaze, saying, Teacher, I hope you can support me. I want to teach this formation to all the magicians of our radiant 5 elements continent. Even though he had already guessed a bit, when these words came out of Jidong's mouth, Zhurong still couldn't help but subconsciously clench his fist. Have you really thought it through? You have to understand, this formation is enough to bring you unimaginable wealth and prestige, as long as it is limited within a certain range. Jidong shook his head, saying, Teacher, now is not the time to be selfish. Our enemy is the dark 5 elements continent. We don't have much time. If we can't prepare well, then, 5 years later, when the Red Lotus heavenly fire disappears, what we will face will be a destructive blow. What Dark Tianji possesses is a strength that surpasses that of the holy beasts. The fusion of the 4 holy beasts has already made his strength infinitely close to that of a god, but we can't possibly have another god to help us. All we can rely on is our own strength. With a loud bang, Zhurong punched the table and said, Good, you are indeed my disciple, standing high and seeing far. This is how you see the big picture. Just now, I have already gone to find your grandmaster. Your grandmaster's idea is the same as yours, but this formation was invented by you after all. If you don't want to, we won't force you. Since you have agreed, then, next, we will fully implement this formation. From tomorrow onwards, the 30 students from the first class, second class and third class will all be under your guidance. I will give you 3 months, you must help them achieve something. After 3 months, you will take them to the Central Plains City. If we want to implement this formation, we still need the support of the Heavenly STEM Academy and the Magicians Guild. Yes, teacher. Jidong nodded and said, Teacher, find a new student of the wood element for the first class. Chen Xishuan's strength is much weaker than the other students. In the first class, she can't release her full strength. Let her train alone for now. Wait until I find a suitable partner for her, then we can start practicing the formation. Zhurong nodded and said, That's no problem, I will arrange it. Early the next morning, the students of the second and third class of the first grade of Blazing Academy received the notice that from today onwards, they would be combined with the first class, under the guidance of the first grade director Ji Dong, becoming a large class of 30 people. At the same time, Chen Xishuan was separated from the academy, becoming a special student, under the guidance of Ji Dong, and a female student of the wood element from the second grade was transferred to the first class. For this special class, the academy specially opened up a floor of the first grade teaching building for their use. The students of Class 1 were naturally very proud of the academy's decision. This was the result of them receiving the academy's approval. On the other hand, the students of Class 2 and Class 3 were rather uneasy when they arrived at their new class. After all, the two classes that had the most conflicts with Class 1 were the classes taught by Xianyuan Shi and Tang Ilian. Ji Dong walked into the large classroom, wearing a plain cloth robe. He had changed out of the white matching couple outfit that was extremely similar to Chen Xishuan's. The moment he came back, he was tall, his appearance wasn't very handsome, and his clothes were very ordinary, without any decorations. The students couldn't even find a storage magic tool on him. However, the moment he stepped into the classroom, the entire classroom immediately fell silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Although Ji Dong wasn't handsome, and his clothes were simple and plain, he had a special, awe-inspiring temperament. In the eyes of the students, he seemed to be so strong, as proud as a king. An invisible pressure was naturally released from his body, making every student subconsciously lower their eyes when looking at him. Although Chen Xishuan wasn't one of the 10 students of the first class anymore, she was still a student of the first class. Zhu Rong's arrangement for her was quite simple. Because of Chen Xishuan's power, Zhu Rong had appointed Ji Dong to be her personal tutor. Regarding this arrangement, Ji Dong had strongly opposed it in the morning, but he couldn't deny Zhu Rong's power. Therefore, he had no choice but to accept it for now. Zhu Rong was very experienced, and added with all kinds of information that he had heard, he was naturally clear about Chen Xishuan's love for Ji Dong. With Chen Xishuan's status and power, plus her perfect face, which was not inferior to that of the flaming bar, Zhu Rong certainly hoped that she and Ji Dong could blossom together. He knew this last disciple of his too well. Ji Dong was as stubborn as him. Once he had made up his mind, he wouldn't easily change his mind. Unless he fell in love with another woman, otherwise, the grief caused by the death of the flaming bar would never disappear from his heart. Of course, Zhu Rong didn't want this to happen, therefore, this arrangement was reasonable. After hearing this news, Chen Xishuan was naturally overjoyed. She didn't sleep much last night, because Ji Dong's figure had been lingering in her mind all the time. That feeling of pain and happiness had brought her a great stimulation. Chen Xishuan was sitting in the middle of the first row. She raised her head and looked at Ji Dong from the closest distance. Among the 31 students in the class, she was the only one who looked at Ji Dong with love instead of awe. Ji Dong stood behind the podium with a cold expression. His hands were pressed against the podium, and his cold and indifferent gaze swept across the faces of the students. He said, "From today onwards there are 31 students in our class. It's best that all of you forget what happened in the past. Since you're all students in the same class, then you're all one. If I hear any discordant voices, then I won't hesitate to kick you out of this class." Even though Ji Dong's voice was very calm, and there weren't many fluctuations in his emotions, not a single person doubted his determination. The students who had been very proud of themselves immediately fell silent, and even their gazes became more restrained. It was very obvious that Ji Dong's words were directed at them. Ji Dong continued, "I think that all of you should know of the existence of the Heavenly STEM Academy. It's the #1 academy in the world, and there are the most outstanding talents on the continent there. There's also a special group in the Heavenly STEM Academy. They're the elites among the elites, and they're also the mainstays of our radiant five elements continent in the past battles between the holy and evil. Zi Qinxing subconsciously asked, Teacher, are you talking about the Yinyang Hall? Hearing the words Yinyang Hall, most of the students' eyes lit up. The Yinyang Hall represented glory and strength. To these students, the Yinyang Hall was a mysterious and powerful place that they yearned for. Ji Dong nodded and said, That's right, it's the Yinyang Hall. I can also honestly tell you that I was once a member of the Yinyang Hall, and I've participated in 2 battles between the holy and evil. Wow, so Teacher Ji Dong is a hero. Xian Wu cried out excitedly. Ji Dong didn't refute Xian Wu's words, and the arrogance in his eyes increased a bit. If he wasn't a hero, then the radiant five elements continent wouldn't have the word hero. If it wasn't for him, Fury, Meow Meow, and the others stopping the dark ceremony in the five elements continent, if it wasn't for his lover Flaming Bar appearing in time and using the red lotus heavenly fire to buy time for the radiant five elements continent, then perhaps the continent would have already been enveloped in a storm of blood. Hearing Ji Dong's words, the students of Class 2 and Class 3 immediately lowered their heads in shame. The teacher they'd always thought was just a drunkard was actually a hero who had participated in the holy and evil war, and even came from the Yinyang Hall. With this kind of background, let alone being a teacher in Blazing Academy, even being a teacher in Heavenly STEM Academy wouldn't be a problem. Until now, many students and teachers had believed that Ji Dong had entered Blazing Academy because of Dean Zhurong's favoritism. Only now did they truly understand that the dean hadn't had the slightest bit of favoritism in bringing Ji Dong in. Ji Dong's strength wasn't something they could doubt. Whether it was his personal strength or his teaching strength, it was obvious to everyone yesterday. A 20-something-year-old 7-crown magician, who had ever heard of him? Ji Dong said, Do you think the Yinyang Hall is very powerful? Ho Xian said, Teacher, isn't the Yinyang Hall powerful? You're that awesome. Ji Dong said, Yes, every student of the Yinyang Hall is extremely powerful. Not only are they blessed by the heavens, they also put all their heart and soul into cultivation. It can be said that your talents simply can't compare to them. Under normal circumstances, any one of the top 30 students of the Yinyang Hall can easily wipe you out. Teacher Ji Dong, are you trying to strike a blow to our confidence? Even if you don't raise the status of the Yinyang Hall, we're still very clear about it. A former Class 2 student said somewhat unhappily. Even though they were ashamed, they didn't want to be rated as trash. Ji Dong sneered, saying, What? Not convinced? You should understand that what I say is the truth. I'm not saying this to raise the Yinyang Hall or belittle you, but to let you know the difference in strength. It's not just in magic power, but also in fighting spirit and practical experience. Zi Qinxing, stand up. Here. Zi Qinxing stood up with a swish. Ji Dong said, Tell us, how can we increase our combat experience? Zi Qinxing said without hesitation, You've taught us and personally put it into practice. Only in the face of danger can we stimulate our own potential and increase our strength. Ji Dong nodded and said, That's right, that's right. Therefore, what I want to tell you is that talent doesn't mean everything. If you can put in more effort than the geniuses of the Yinyang Hall, it may not be impossible for you to have the same strength as them. Fighting spirit and practical experience are the direction of your future development. From now on, you must be mentally prepared. My teaching will definitely not follow the rules, and no one can go against my orders. No matter what I ask you to do, even if I ask you to jump off a cliff, you must do it. I can promise you that after 3 months, the 31 of you here will be able to withstand the attacks of at least 10 disciples of the Yinyang Hall. In other words, within 3 months, I will increase your practical ability by more than 10 times. Do you understand? The Class 2 student who had previously protested couldn't help but say, Teacher Ji Dong, how can you prove to us that we can contend against the disciples of the Yinyang Hall? Ji Dong said, I hope this is the last time I hear you question me. I can answer your question right now. 3 months from now, I will bring the 31 of you to the Heavenly STEM Academy for an exchange. To put it bluntly, I will be bringing you to clean up the place. If you want to show off in front of others, you must be prepared to suffer in the end. As soon as Ji Dong's words fell, the entire class was in an uproar. This time, even Chen Sichuan's eyes revealed a strange expression. Sweeping the field at the Heavenly STEM Academy's Yinyang Hall? Everyone felt as if there was something wrong with their ears. Even in Blazing Academy, they were only first-year students. Even though Ji Dong had previously said that a single Yinyang Hall disciple could wipe them all out, they had to admit that what Ji Dong said was the truth. But now, he said that he would bring them to the Heavenly STEM Academy's Yinyang Hall to sweep the field in 3 months. This was undoubtedly like a heavy bomb exploding. Let's do it, Teacher Ji Dong, I'll follow you. The Class 2 student who had raised the question before suddenly swung his fist, his eyes filled with intense flames of excitement. Chapter 369. The Class 2 students' shout echoed the thoughts of all the students. Even though the requirements to join Blazing Academy weren't as strict as Heavenly STEM Academy, those who could enter here were similarly talented youths who were willing to cultivate diligently. Everyone knew the hardships of cultivation. To them, paying a lot wasn't the most important. The most important thing was that there must be a return for the effort, a sufficient return. Without a doubt, what Ji Dong gave them was this kind of opportunity. 3 months, no matter how hard it was to cultivate, it still wouldn't be impossible to endure. Imagining that after 3 months, they would be able to challenge the experts of Heavenly STEM Academy's Yinyang Hall, every one of them was already brimming with fighting spirit. None of the students present doubted Ji Dong's words. Yesterday's battle between Ji Dong and Xianyuan Xian, as well as Class 1's stunning performance, had already proved many things. Looking at the students' burning gazes, Ji Dong nodded, saying, "Very good, as long as you are willing to work hard, in the near future you will understand how much your efforts are worth. Now we'll start dividing you into groups, not according to your original class, but according to your own attribute. Each group will have 3 people, the original Class 1 student will be the team leader, the second wood department will have 4 people, and Chen Sichuan will be the team leader. Original Class 1 students, you will pass on your understanding of the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation to your team members of the same attribute. This will be your subject of study this morning. In the afternoon, I will help you complete the cycle separately." The current Ji Dong was clearly very different from when he first became Class 1's homeroom teacher. At least his mind had already returned to normal. Zhurong's arrangement was exactly what Ji Dong wanted. Even though his 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation was good, it still needed to be tested. Only by testing it in practice could he prove whether or not this formation was suitable to be popularized in the world of magi. Facts proved that testing was very necessary. In the afternoon of the first day of class, Ji Dong discovered a drawback of the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation. To put it simply, this drawback was not a problem for Ji Dong. It was the first formation of the 5 elements cycle. Ji Dong realized that it was very difficult for the 5 yang attributed or yin attributed students to complete the cycle. After all, their magic power levels were different, and everyone had their own way of operating their magic power. After many attempts, the students from Class 2 and Class 3 were unable to complete the cycle on their own. No matter how thoroughly the students from Class 1 explained their experiences, they still couldn't do it. After some simple thinking, Ji Dong understood the crux of the problem. This crux lay in his spiritual power. Back then, the students of Class 1 had completed the mutual generation and circulation formation under the guidance of his spiritual power. With the guidance of the route and method, the 10 students of Class 1 had completed the yin and yang cycle. Without his guidance, the students wouldn't have been able to complete it. This was the effect of the spiritual power after the soul vortex had strengthened. In order to prove his theory, Ji-dong once again used his spiritual power to guide the students of the two new classes. Just as he expected, with the help of his spiritual power, although their mutual generation and circulation formation was still a little shaky, they succeeded on the first try. After discovering the problem, Ji-dong immediately found Zhu Rong and told his teacher about the problem. After hearing Ji-dong's words, Zhu Rong frowned and said, "It seems that if we want to carry out the 5 elements cycle formation, we first have to face 2 problems. One is what you just said, that we need someone with strong spiritual power to guide us. The other is that, after the guidance, the 5 people who have completed the cycle have to train together and form a group. Once they are separated, it will be ineffective. It seems that the existence of everything in the world is reasonable. Behind great power there are drawbacks. No matter if the group is separated or if one of the members dies, the mutual generation formation will immediately be destroyed. Ji-dong, can you tell me roughly what level of magic master is needed to use spiritual power to guide the 5 elements cycle to complete?" Without hesitation, Ji-dong said, "A master with 9 crowns." Zhu Rong was shocked and said, "Only a master with supreme power?" Ji-dong nodded and said with certainty, "Unless it is a magic master who has had a special encounter, otherwise, only a master with supreme power can have such a great spiritual power. Spiritual guidance is extremely dangerous. Not only does the guide have the risk of being devoured, if the guided doesn't have enough spiritual power to guide, it is also very difficult to complete the mutual generation cycle." Zhu Rong said, "This is indeed a problem. Therefore, this 5 elements cycle formation needs more assistance before it can be practiced uniformly. You continue to teach these 30 students. The original plan remains the same. In 3 months, you will bring them to the Heavenly STEM Academy for an exchange. At that time, my teacher and your teacher's wife should also be there." 3 months later. Mutual generation cycle, grow and multiply without end. The sun and the moon rotate, the body and the shadow are separated. Ji-dong stood on the wide field, his cold voice echoing across the field. Chen Sichuan stood beside Ji-dong with a hint of sadness between her eyebrows. Ever since Ji-dong started teaching this special class of 30 people 3 months ago, it could be said that he drew a clear line between them. Although he was teaching her alone, in reality, the two of them did not have any personal contact at all. Every day, when the other students were cultivating the mutual generation cycle, Ji-dong would only give her simple pointers. She could clearly feel the coldness of Ji-dong that kept people thousands of miles away. She really didn't know whether she should be happy or sad. Time passed day by day, but there was no progress between them. How she wished that they could be like before, how she wished that she could see him happy. However, it seemed that these were just extravagant wishes. Although Chen Sichuan now had a certain understanding of human love, she was the reincarnation of the flaming bar. When she was still in the flaming bar, she was a god. How could she understand how a girl should pursue a boy? She had even asked a few of her roommates about this problem, but they couldn't explain it either. In the eyes of these girls, their teacher Ji-dong was a freak. He was indifferent to the pursuit of a peerless beauty like Princess Xian, the Eastern Wood Saint. It was unbelievable. On the field, the 30 students formed 6 mutual generation formations, arranged in a hexagonal shape. Each adjacent formation had a different yin and yang attribute. The sun and moon rotation that Ji-dong mentioned referred to the different yin and yang attribute formations. Ji-dong had fulfilled his promise. Not only did the students of Class 1 learn his doppelganger illusion, but the students of Class 2 and Class 3 also learned this miraculous skill. It was just that with their current cultivation, they were still unable to unleash the full power of this skill. Even so, it was enough to greatly increase their individual and formation combat strength. The 6 formations moved quickly on the field, like a huge gear. As the students moved faster and faster, the formation formed by the 30 people created a series of phantoms. The distance between the 6 formations was just right, and they maintained the same balance. Yin and Yang complemented each other and helped each other. There was no expression on Ji Dong's cold face, but Chen Sichuan, who was familiar with him, could still see the satisfaction in his eyes. If anyone had seen these students 3 months ago, they would have been shocked. Every student had lost a lot of weight, but their eyes were much sharper than 3 months ago. It was as if they had been influenced by their teacher Ji Dong. When the formation was activated, each one of them had a calm and dignified demeanor. At this time, the large formation formed by the 6 formations was even more dignified. The magic power contained within it was getting stronger and stronger. Even Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan, who had won 6 or 7 crowns, couldn't take it lightly. In a short 3 months, if one had to describe these 30 students, it would be reborn. Even they themselves didn't know what level their strength had reached. They only knew that in these 3 months, each of their abilities had increased exponentially. Just in terms of magic power, each student had risen by 2 ranks on average. This kind of cultivation speed was something they didn't even dare imagine before. Regarding Ji Dong, they were no longer just convinced, but worshiped. In their hearts, teacher Ji Dong was a godlike existence. In the first month, under Ji Dong's hellish training, the female students didn't know how many times they cried, and more than one of the male students couldn't bear it either. However, even if they wanted to quit, Ji Dong wouldn't give them the chance. At the end of the first month, Ji Dong brought them to a practical trial, and it was also this trial that firmed their confidence. The result of this trial was very simple. The profits from hunting magical beasts allowed each of them to have their own set of magic power armor. Even though it was only light armor that could protect the important parts, the price of something like magic power armor could be imagined. Even some 6-crown magicians might not necessarily have one. It was also precisely at the end of that trial that the great formation of the 30 of them, without the guidance of Ji Dong's soul, killed several 7th-rank magical beasts. This kind of result could be said to be unprecedented in Blazing Academy. At that time, they felt that confronting the Yin-Yang Hall was no longer a dream. In the following 2 months, they didn't even need Ji Dong to use any more severe methods to force them. They were already able to consciously cultivate, working hard to complete every cultivation mission Ji Dong assigned. At the end of the 2nd month, the doppelganger shadow steps became their reward, as well as 2 other skills. The male students learned Scorching Sun Devour, and the female students learned Dark Moon Claw, only adjusted according to their different attribute. Moreover, the Scorching Sun Devour and Dark Moon Claw improved by Ji Dong were also quite different from the ones Ji Dong used himself. These 2 skills of Ji Dong were originally close combat skills, but after being taught to these students, they became long-range skills. Ji Dong's goal was to give them a true method of condensing magic power. Only the attack form maintained some of the characteristics of Scorching Sun Devour and Dark Moon Claw, the names of the skills unchanged. Teacher Ji Dong, the dean invites you. A middle-aged teacher of about 40 arrived at Ji Dong's side. Thank you. The coldness on Ji Dong's face faded a bit. He nodded to this teacher, then said to Chen Sichuan, "You stay here and continue to teach them. I'll be back soon." "All right." Chen Sichuan nodded, smiling at him with a gentle look in her eyes. Ji Dong turned around and left. That middle-aged teacher who came to report glanced at the 30 students who were cultivating in the field. His eyes showed strong admiration. Now, Ji Dong's teaching ability had been recognized by the entire academy. Not only the students of different grades all hoped to receive his guidance, even the teachers wished to become his students. Just yesterday, during the school meeting, Zhu Rong announced that 3 days later, Ji Dong would take his 31 students to the Heavenly STEM Academy for an exchange as the Vice Dean of Blazing Academy. Surprisingly, no one objected to this Vice Dean position. Arriving at Zhu Rong's office, before Ji Dong knocked on the door, Zhu Rong's voice came from inside. Ji Dong, come in. Ji Dong walked in, but as soon as he saw the situation inside the office, he was stunned. In Zhu Rong's office, besides Zhu Rong, there was another person. To Ji Dong, this person could be said to be an acquaintance. Haha, Ji Dong kid, you didn't expect this, did you? The one who came was none other than the foolishly rich president of the Chamber of Commerce, the supreme gung metal element expert, the successor of Song Mian, Zhou Xiaoxiao. Zhou Xiaoxiao's figure had become more and more plump. Standing in Zhu Rong's office, his huge body gave off a feeling of being able to support both heaven and earth. President Zhou, hello, why are you here at my teacher's place? Did you come to the Southern Fire Empire to find my grandmaster? Ji Dong asked doubtfully. He had a good impression of this fatty, at least he wasn't pretentious and was powerful. Zhou Xiaoxiao grinned and said, No, I didn't come to find brother Yin Zhaoyang. This time, I came especially for you. For me? Ji Dong looked at Zhu Rong confusedly. Zhu Rong obviously didn't know the purpose of Zhou Xiaoxiao's visit, so he slightly shook his head. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, Yes, I came to find you. Did you forget what we talked about last time? I know the whereabouts of your 10 famous wines. Ji Dong was shocked. A rare look of surprise appeared in his eyes. The 10 famous wines were the Flaming Bar's last wish, and could be said to be the most important thing in Ji Dong's heart. The reason why he wasn't in a hurry to find them was that 2 of them were in his storage bracelet. As long as he found Ah Jin, he could get them back. Therefore, he didn't need to be in a hurry for 2 years. Now that he heard about Zhou Xiaoxiao's whereabouts, how could he not be happy? But I didn't show you the list of famous wines, Ji Dong said doubtfully. Zhou Xiaoxiao patted his round belly and said, If I don't even have this ability, I, fatty, would have lived in vain. I sent someone to the Bartenders Guild. Chapter 370. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, I sent someone to the Bartender Guild to make a copy of the famous wine catalog, and then search the Chamber of Commerce's wine collection. Among the 10 famous wines, besides the origin of life and the vast sea-fine nectar that you already have, I found 4 more. The remaining 4 are a bit more troublesome. According to the famous wine catalog, there are 6 of these 10 famous wines in the radiant 5 elements continent. The 2 you have and the 4 I have are just enough. The other 4 are in the dark 5 elements continent, and I can't do anything about them for now. However, after 5 years, the heavenly red lotus flame will disappear, and the holy war will be unavoidable. At that time, I'll find a way to go to the dark 5 elements continent to find them for you. Chairman Zhou, thank you. Ji Dong spoke from the bottom of his heart, his gaze clearly becoming a bit more intimate as he looked at Fatty. Even though Fatty's promise back then was only verbal, he had taken it to heart, even going so far as to personally make a trip to Blazing Academy to tell him this news. But Ji Dong firmly remembered this favor. Fatty said, Don't thank me. From a businessman's point of view, this is a transaction. I've already reported your situation to the Chamber of Commerce's Council, and after a discussion, more than 80% of the council members agreed to my proposal. As long as you can pass the examination of the council, you will be confirmed as a candidate for the Chamber of Commerce's president, and will receive all aspects of support for you. Wait a moment, what president candidate? Ji Dong, what's going on? Zhurong asked doubtfully. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, Zhurong, I've already spoken to brother Yin Chaoyang about this matter. Brother said that Ji Dong will make the decision himself, so you don't need to get involved. Don't worry, I won't harm your precious disciple. Actually, my main target for the assessment was your other disciple, Fury, but after discovering Ji Dong, I changed my mind. You know the rules of our Chamber of Commerce very well. Although you have to bear more responsibilities, as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, your main role is to be a deterrent. You don't have to do much actual work, and you can still receive the full support of the Chamber of Commerce. This is not a bad thing. Zhu Rong frowned. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao was a supreme being, he was not afraid of anything. However, Zhou Xiaoxiao brought up Yin Yang Chaoyang, which made him speechless. He would never question his teacher's decision. Zhou Xiaoxiao's face revealed a sly expression. Hyoheim said, "Kid, when are you going to get the wine with me?" Ji Dong replied without hesitation, "Of course, anytime." Zhou Xiaoxiao replied, "That depends on your time. When you're ready, come to Golden City to find me. I'll be waiting for you there. However, I have to remind you that taking these 4 bottles of wine means that you've officially accepted me as my successor. These 4 bottles of wine are also rare treasures. If you want to take them away, you'll have to pass the examination of the Chamber of Commerce's council. Otherwise, even if I'm the president, I have no right to give away the chamber's treasures." Ji Dong said, "I understand, I'll go there. But I'm afraid I can't do it in the near future. I have to go to the central city first, then the Holy Evil Island. When I'm done with these things, I'll go to Golden City to find you." For the sake of Raging Flame's wish, he had to go through any kind of test no matter what. 4 of the 10 great famous wines. Although not all of them, with these 4 bottles of wine, he would be able to work hard for the sacred war between the 2 continents in the next 5 years. He had already thought it through very clearly. He had given himself 10 years. In these 10 years to fulfill Raging Flame's wish, he must complete everything and do his best. After 10 years, when he fulfilled Raging Flame's wish, it would be time for him to find Raging Flames. Zhou Xiaoxiao said happily, "Now that everything is clear, I'll leave now. I still have some other things to deal with. Ji Dong, you have to be mentally prepared. Although you're very strong, the examination of the Chamber of Commerce's council is very strange. It's not limited to combat ability. When I took the examination, I almost lost a layer of skin. It was because there was no other candidate and the president was not in good health, so I barely passed." Ji Dong said blandly, "I'm determined to get the top 10 wines." Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "That's good. I'll go back and wait for you. After the Chamber of Commerce officially confirms you as my successor, I'll be able to relax. I won't need to be forced to cultivate by those old guys every day. If I have time, I'd rather spend it with the beauties. I don't know how many beauties are waiting for me." Looking at him, Ji Dong couldn't help but feel speechless. Did it mean that as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, he had to be greedy and lustful? Zhou Xiaoxiao left. Without Zhu Rong asking, Ji Dong told him how he met Zhou Xiaoxiao. After listening to Ji Dong, Zhu Rong couldn't help but sigh. "Ji Dong, you've shouldered enough responsibilities." Ji Dong said, "I'm sorry, teacher, I have to become Zhou Xiaoxiao's successor, because I'm determined to get the top 10 wines. This was the Flaming Bar's last wish before she died. I want to offer a famous wine to her in heaven every year." Zhu Rong's whole body shook. "You're willing to become the president of the Chamber of Commerce just to offer a sacrifice to the Flaming Bar?" Looking at Ji Dong's somewhat indifferent expression, Zhu Rong couldn't help but feel a wave of pain in his heart. This child had really endured too much. His affection for the Flaming Bar was actually so deep. "Teacher, please don't stop me. I've already made up my mind." Zhu Rong sighed. "Just like what your grandmaster said, do what you want to do. Teacher believes you'll have your own judgment. Go back and prepare. The day after tomorrow you should set off for Central Plain City. This time, you have 2 tasks you must complete. One is to let the Heavenly STEM Academy know the strength of our Blazing Academy, the other is to bring Zhu Yan back. As for the matter of the 5 elements cycle formation, it's up to you." Zhu Rong attached great importance to this exchange trip to the Heavenly STEM Academy. Back then, he didn't leave the Heavenly STEM Academy only because of Ji Dong. Even though Yin Zhaorong's position among the top 10 directors was extraordinary, Zhu Rong was only an ordinary director. There, he simply couldn't fulfill his ambitions. That's why he chose to leave. He wanted to prove himself to the Heavenly STEM Academy. Even without the full support of the empires, he could still establish a higher education institution like the Heavenly STEM Academy. To Zhu Rong, the thing he was most proud of in his life was having two good disciples. He naturally hoped that this time, Ji Dong would lead the Blazing Academy students to the Heavenly STEM Academy for the exchange, to display Blazing Academy's elegance. At least, he had to let the directors of the Heavenly STEM Academy know that the Blazing Academy was approaching the Heavenly STEM Academy's strength step by step. Therefore, not only did Zhu Rong personally choose armors for the students in Ji Dong's class, he even specially prepared 32 horses for them, in preparation for this trip. Otherwise, even if they had enough crystal nuclei, finding 30 sets of magic weapons and light armors in such a short period of time wouldn't be an easy matter. Of course, if they could bring Zhu Yan back, then the situation would be greatly different. Among the 5 empires, the Southern Fire Empire with fire magicians was the most proficient in forging. Zhu Yan was also a top-notch figure in the magic weapon forging world. With him overseeing things, it could be said that Blazing Academy would directly rise to a higher level. Even though it wouldn't be able to contend with the Heavenly STEM Academy as equals, at least their comprehensive strength would be substantially close. 2 days later, early in the morning, 32 riders left Blazing City at lightning speed, heading straight for the Central Earth Empire. After a long separation of nearly a year, Ji Dong was finally returning to the Central Plains. Ji Dong was riding at the front of the group on a maroon horse. Although he was sitting on the back of a horse, his back was still as straight as a pencil. Every student was imitating him, maintaining the same posture with a stern look in their eyes. On the official road, apart from the crisp sound of hooves, there was unexpectedly no other sound. The students didn't even whisper to each other, each and every one of them with grave and stern expressions. The hell-like training was definitely extremely effective. This had been proved by Ji Dong when he was cultivating in the Flaming Bar. Regarding the training of these students, Ji Dong was even stricter than what he had done in the Flaming Bar. He had even ordered his students not to talk for 7 days. Only by talking less and doing more could they be more focused. This was Ji Dong's idea. By now, the class composed of these 30 students was named as the Sun and Moon Hall by Zhu Rong himself, which seemed to be able to compete with the Limit Yang Hall of the Heavenly STEM Academy. Among these 30 students, 12 of them had already broken through the 3-crown level, and 7 more were about to break through the 3-crown level. Even the lowest level among them had reached level 27. According to Ji Dong's estimation, in 3 to 4 months at most, all of these students would be able to break through the 3-crown level. 3-crown level wasn't a big deal in the world of Devil, because the actual fighting power of an individual was still relatively weak. However, what Ji Dong wanted was the comprehensive fighting power. He was very confident in his student. The Heavenly STEM Academy wasn't just something that Zhu Rong couldn't let go of. To Ji Dong, the Heavenly STEM Academy also had a special meaning. Back then, he was forced to leave the Heavenly STEM Academy and the Yin Yang Hall. Even though he had taken part in the 2 battles between the holy and the evil, he still held a grudge against the Heavenly STEM Academy. If the Heavenly STEM Academy was truly fair, he wouldn't need to leave. Of course, the current Ji Dong was no longer the same as before. Even if he didn't retaliate and stood in front of the Heavenly STEM Academy's dean, Ji Mingxian, she wouldn't dare to touch a single hair on his head. Ji Dong had a lot of identities, and every single one of them was enough to shock people on the continent. The law enforcement elder of the Devil Guild, the grandson of the Prince Equivalent, the disciple of the God of Victory and the God of Tai, the holy disciple of 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 the holy. Horses galloped forward at a speed of 400 kilometers per day. If it wasn't for the fact that the horses couldn't bear it, they would have been able to move even faster. People's rest was all thanks to the horses. The Sun Moon Hall had just been established, and Ji Dong clearly knew how much Zhu Rong valued the first batch of students. Therefore, when he was teaching this batch of students, besides the power, he had also specially emphasized on the quality of their will. Without a strong will, no matter how powerful they were, they wouldn't be able to make it big. Even Chen Xishuan admired Ji Dong's teaching method very much. The distance from the Blazing Fire City to the Central City was much longer than when Ji Dong had traveled from the Blazing Fire City to the Central City. The Blazing Fire City was very close to the border between the two empires, while the Blazing Fire City was located in the center of the Southern Fire Empire. Therefore, even though they were moving at a high speed, they still spent 6 whole days to reach the border between the two empires. After a simple resupply, Ji Dong ordered the army to no longer move at a high speed. They slowed down their speed to 200 kilometers per day and continued moving forward. He had to adjust the condition of the students. He couldn't let them reach the central city in a fatigued state. The 32 cavalrymen were still very eye-catching on the official road, especially in this situation where half of them were male and half were female. Not long after they entered the Central Earth Empire, a large group of people vaguely blocked their path. It wasn't a merchant group but an army. What made Ji Dong even more surprised was that this army was actually made up of heavy armored cavalry. In the battle order of the empires, although heavy armored cavalry wasn't at the top of the army, it was still one of the most expensive army type. It was only second to some troops that were equipped with magic masters. A heavy armored cavalry legion would need twice the number of people to supply their logistics. And this army that appeared in front of everyone right now, through visual estimation, there were at least 3,000 of them. 3,000 heavy armored cavalry galloped forward like an earthquake. From afar, the rumbling sounds could already be heard. This level of mobilization of an army could be considered as a large scale. Could it be that they were going to carry out some mission? Ji Dong waved his hand and said, "Move to the side of the road." For most of the Sun Moon Hall's disciples, it was also their first time seeing such a large army. All of them revealed looks of excitement in their eyes. Looking at the steel torrent rapidly approaching them, they all felt a majestic aura. The person at the very front was wearing a thick bright yellow full-body armor. He wasn't riding a tall and sturdy horse, but a huge earthen dragon. Wasn't this the earth-shattering dragon that was specially equipped for the Diamond Corps? This person was also dressed like a member of the Diamond Corps. It was just that he was wearing a helmet, so his appearance couldn't be seen. Seeing that the huge earth-shattering dragon was right in front of them, the rider on the back of the earth-shattering dragon suddenly pulled on the reins and shouted, "Stop!" Immediately, the sound of horses neighing and metal clanging rang out at the same time. It wasn't easy to stop the steel torrent of the heavy armored cavalry legion. Usually, there would be a process of deceleration, but these 3,000 heavy armored cavalry had forcibly stopped. From this, it could be seen how elite they were. Chapter 371. The gigantic body of the Class 4 earth-shattering dragon rose up, its huge tail supporting itself on the ground. It raised its hind legs slightly before slamming them down, stabilizing its body. The knight on the back of the earth-shattering dragon raised the standard hammer of the diamond core, and looked towards Ji Dong and the rest through his helmet. His gaze immediately caused the students behind Ji Dong to tense up. After all, they weren't in the Southern Fire Empire anymore. They were facing 3,000 heavily armored cavalrymen, and the majestic aura they just displayed had deeply shocked them. Now that the leader of the Earth Dragon Riders was looking in their direction, the entire army was under immense pressure. The knight's gaze landed on Ji Dong's face, and in the next moment, he had already hung the hammer in his hand on the saddle bridge of the earth-shattering dragon's back. He leapt off the earth-shattering dragon, and his movements were extremely agile. He took large strides towards Ji Dong. As he neared, the knight had already taken off his helmet, revealing a head of golden hair and a handsome face. However, in the next moment, he had already knelt on one knee in front of Ji Dong's horse. His eyes shone with excitement, and he said respectfully, "Lang Tianyi pays his respects to the young master." When he took off his helmet, Ji Dong had already recognized him. This golden-haired young man was the son of the commander of the Central Plains Empire's Diamond Corps, Lang Tianyi, a direct descendant of the Pingding king. When Ji Dong had first met Lang Tianyi, he had been together with Lan Bao. He had been arrogant and despotic, offending Cannon Dragon, and had his arm personally severed by Ji Dong. Afterwards, Ji Dong had given Lang Xie half a bottle of the Source of Life to restore Lang Tianyi's arm. From the looks of it, his arm was already as good as new. With Ji Dong's spiritual force, he could see that Lang Tianyi's strength had improved significantly over the past year. It could be said that he had advanced by leaps and bounds. Ji Dong recognized Lang Tianyi, and the students behind him all had their mouths wide open. It was very obvious that this knight was the commander of the several thousand heavy cavalry, and he actually knelt in front of teacher Ji Dong, and even called him young master. Heavens, just what kind of status did our teacher Ji Dong have? Ji Dong did not dismount. He said indifferently, "So, it is you. Get up." "Yes." Lang Tianyi respectfully stood up. The arrogance from over a year ago had already completely disappeared. Replacing it was a heavy stubble. "Young master, why are you here? I heard that you participated in the previous battle between the holy and evil. Your hair." Lang Tianyi looked at Ji Dong's head of white hair. Other than unpretentious respect, there was also deep shock in his eyes. Previously, when Ji Dong had broken one of his arms, it was an extremely heavy blow to him. He was a descendant that the Wolf family had meticulously nurtured, and was prepared to be the future commander of the Diamond Corps. At only 27 years of age, he had broken through to 6 crowns. This was not the slightest bit inferior to the top 10 disciples of the Yinyang Hall, and even surpassed them. Thus, he had the qualifications to be arrogant. However, that time, when he encountered Thunder Emperor Fury and Tyrant Ji Dong, he was first slapped away by Fury, and then one of his arms was crippled by Ji Dong. This process not only injured his body, but also dealt a huge blow to his arrogant heart. It must be known that Ji Dong looked a few years younger than him, only in his early 20s. When he returned home, he hoped that his father and uncle would help him. However, after his father asked about the situation, he did not hesitate to break his other arm, and told him that if he wanted to live, he had to obediently listen to his father's orders. As the commander of the Diamond Legion, although Lang Xie held a high position, he doted on his only son very much. Ever since he was young, not to mention beating him, he had never even said a single harsh word to him. However, this time, he had personally broken his son's arm. When Lang Xie brought him to kneel in front of Ji Dong to beg for forgiveness, Lang Tianyi finally understood that this so-called genius of his was ultimately not a peak existence. There were some people that he could not afford to offend. He deeply regretted that in order to pursue a woman, even his father had to be implicated. Although he was somewhat arrogant, His nature was extremely filial, and his relationship with his father was the deepest. At that time, he wanted nothing more than to smash his head into a wall and kill himself to prevent his father from being humiliated. In any case, he was already a cripple. However, what Ji Dong did next had ultimately redeemed some face for the Wolf family. Not only did he not blame his father, he even took out a bottle of mysterious source of life and gave it to his father. Afterwards, when he personally experienced the mysteries of the source of life, Lang Tianyi finally understood how great of a favor Ji Dong had given him. Not only did his arm become as good as new, it was even stronger than before. According to his father, with this half a bottle of source of life, he and his uncle would be able to extend their lives by at least 20 years. At that moment, Lang Tianyi's hatred towards Ji Dong had already turned into admiration, deep admiration. From then on, his personality changed greatly. The arrogance that flowed on the surface was hidden deep within his bones, and he wholeheartedly immersed himself in cultivation. In just a short span of a year, he had repeatedly broken through, and his mana cultivation was already nearing level 70. The current him was not even 30 years old, and in terms of mana cultivation, he could even be compared to the Thunder Emperor of the past. It could be said that his conflict with Ji Dong was a turning point in his life, and this turning point was engraved in his heart, and he was also filled with gratitude. Now that he saw Ji Dong again, how could he not be respectful? The past is the past, what are you going to do? Are you not in the Diamond Core anymore? Ji Dong nodded towards Lang Tianyi. From his eyes, Ji Dong could already clearly sense that this fellow, who had once been somewhat profligate, had changed greatly. Lang Tianyi said respectfully, "Father sent me to the local army to train, and I was assigned to the Empire's 16th Heavy Cavalry Regiment as the deputy commander. Recently, bandits have been rampant at the borders, and this time, I received orders to eliminate the largest den of bandits, and at the same time train the troops." Ji Dong said doubtfully, "Using heavy cavalry to eliminate bandits? That doesn't seem very appropriate, right?" Lang Tianyi said, "Young master, our 16th Heavy Cavalry Regiment is the Empire's trump-card army. Our cavalry and land combat capabilities are very strong, and we can become heavy infantry at any time." "So that's how it is. Is the place where the bandits are stationed far from here?" Lang Tianyi said, "It's already not far, about 30 li away. This group of bandits are extremely arrogant, and they have already formed a force. There are at least 5,000 of them, robbing passing merchants and committing all kinds of crimes. They are the largest group of bandits at the border, and they are also very cunning. Their stronghold is located at the border between our country and the Southern Fire Empire. Once we make a move, they will retreat into the Southern Fire Empire's territory, making it impossible for us to pursue and kill them, and vice versa, making the border restless. This time, our country's military has already negotiated with the Southern Fire Empire. With our troops, we can enter the Southern Fire Empire's territory and eliminate these bandits in one fell swoop." Ji Dong nodded and said, "Killing bandits and killing enemies, this is a good thing for the country and the people. Brother Lang, I am now a teacher of the Southern Fire Empire's Blazing Academy, and these people following me are my students. We are preparing to go to the Heavenly STEM Academy for an exchange. My students' combat experience is limited to hunting magic beasts. I hope they can really see blood on the battlefield. If it's convenient, can we go with you to eliminate the bandits?" Hearing Ji Dong's words, Lang Tianyi was immediately overjoyed. Although he didn't believe that the bandits had the power to stop him, to be able to travel with Ji Dong and get closer to him was definitely a good thing. One of the main reasons why his father didn't dare to promote him into the Diamond Corps was because he had offended the young master. Wasn't this a good opportunity to clear up the misunderstanding? Not to mention that the young master was very strong. With the young master, this military operation would undoubtedly reduce the losses to the minimum. That's really great. With a young master and a group of young heroes accompanying us, our army will be unstoppable. Young master, the military situation is urgent. Let's set off now. How about you ride my earth-cracking dragon? Oh right, young master, you can call me Tianni. If my father hears you call me Brother Lang, I'm afraid he'll break both my legs. Ji Dong shook his head and said, I'll ride a horse. Tianni, let's go. Lang Tianni absolutely didn't want to give Ji Dong the impression that he would abandon his duty for personal reasons, so he didn't say anything more and once again mounted his earth-cracking dragon. He invited Ji Dong and the group of Sun Moon Hall disciples to follow him to the front of the group, traveling along the official road. When the disciples of the Sun Moon Hall heard that there would be actual combat, and that it would be exterminating mountain bandits, all of them couldn't help but rub their palms together. In the past 3 months of bitter cultivation, their favorite cultivation method was actual combat. The sense of accomplishment from hunting demonic beasts was incomparable to the usual boring cultivation. However, just as Ji Dong had said, they had never truly killed anyone before. How could they not be delighted to have the opportunity to experience the feeling of fighting with someone? At full speed, 30 li only took less than an hour. Not far away, a large mountain came into view. Ji Dong opened the map and looked at it. His eyes couldn't help but reveal a sense of loss. This large mountain was a branch of the Frost Mountain range. He could still vividly remember the time when he, Bissot, and Carr crossed the Frost Mountain range and encountered the frost dragon Feng Shuang. That was the first time the Flaming Bar met him in the human world. It was also with the help of the Flaming Bar that he had soaked in Feng Shuang's dragon blood and built an excellent foundation. Even Maotai and Wuliangye were snatched from Feng Shuang. Before entering the mountain, Lang Tianni ordered them to rest where they were. At this moment, the elites of this army were revealed. Even if they were to rest, they were resting in armor. Not a single person even took off their helmet. They only lifted the masks on their helmets to drink some water. Their formation was still neat and orderly, ready to react at any time. Young master, do you have any instructions? Lang Tianni and Hyoheim asked. Ji Dong shook his head and said, I'm a layman when it comes to war. I'll listen to you. Just treat us as the demon masters of the army. Lang Tianni said, Young master, the terrain in these mountains is complicated. Here's my plan. We'll leave our mounts here and leave 100 men to guard this place. We'll first send 10 squads to scout the area, and the main force will follow behind to prevent an ambush. When we reach the stronghold, we'll wipe out the bandits with a thunderous force. The Southern Fire Empire will deal with the aftermath. Ji Dong said, with such a large-scale march, I'm afraid the bandits have already discovered us. If they send scouts into the mountain, there will definitely be some losses. Lang Tianni nodded and said, There's no other way. We can't just let the main army go in. If the bandits set up an ambush, it will be very dangerous. Ji Dong shook his head and said, We still need to go to Central Plains City. To avoid wasting time, I'll help you scout. You don't need to send scouts out. Lang Tianni looked at Ji Dong in shock. Ever since he met Ji Dong, he had been quietly observing this young master. Compared to the last time they met, he was clearly much colder. His white hair was even more eye-catching, and his eyes would occasionally reveal a deathly stillness that caused one's heart to palpitate. Ji Dong didn't explain anything to Lang Tianni. A silver light flashed in his eyes, and in that instant, Lang Tianni felt an indescribable feeling enter his mind. After all, he was a 6-crown demon master. He wasn't as easy to control as Ji Dong's students. His own soul power subconsciously resisted. However, Ji Dong's soul power was too strong. It directly suppressed his soul. At the same time, Ji Dong's voice sounded in his mind, It's me. Don't be nervous. Just as Lang Tianni was shocked and let down his guard, Ji Dong's soul power was already fully unleashed. In the next moment, Lang Tianni instantly felt a magical scene. His gaze seemed to fly into the sky. His thoughts extended infinitely. A large number of illusory scenes gradually became clear, appearing in his mind. Feeling it carefully, he suddenly discovered that in his soul world, it was as if he was overlooking a mountain range with a radius of at least 1,000 meters. Everything was clear to him. Even the distance appeared precisely in this detection. This was basically an accurate map that could change at any time. Lang Tianyi didn't have time to think about how Ji Dong had done it. His soul had already discovered many ambushes in the mountains under Ji Dong's guidance. In a few places, the mountain bandits had made use of the terrain to prepare large amounts of rolling wood and thunderstones. They were all specially aimed at heavily armored soldiers like him. Some of the more dangerous places were even more heavily guarded. Just as Ji Dong had said, these bandits had already made preparations. Although their weapons and clothing were very simple, they were well versed in the art of war. To be able to gather 5,000 of them, this group of bandits didn't seem as easy to deal with as he had imagined. Instead, they were a piece of bone that was hard to chew. A faint layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. At this time, everything returned to normal. As the silver light in Ji Dong's eyes disappeared, the magical scene in Lang Tianyi's mind also ended. In a while, I will continue to use my soul power to help you investigate. If you don't have a better choice, I suggest a forceful attack. My students and I will be in charge of attacking. Haven't the bandits already set up their defenses? Then, we'll attack one footprint at a time. We'll break through their defenses and their psychological defenses.